Howdy, y'all. On this week's episode of Greeting From, we'll be discussing Red Dead Redemption 2. Hell, it's about time. But before we begin, I must warn you that there are some heavy spoilers in these parts, So proceed with caution if you haven't played or finished the game. With that said, I'd say you're ready to go in and listen. Enjoy! Yeehaw!
Howdy, travelers. It's January 29th, 1899, and this is That There Greetings From Their podcast. My name is Rebecca Fay, the fastest gun in the West, and I'm joined as always by my two very good partners in crime. First of all, she's robbed trains, she's robbed banks, and she's here today robbing hearts. It's Miss Livia Quinn.
Hey there, partner.
Howdy, partner. How's it hanging out here in the West with them there tumbleweeds?
Well, I'll just let you go then.
Okay.
That's a commentary on how Red Dead handles some camp dialogue.
Okay, Arthur. And of course, to my you actually are directly across from me as we are beaming in from that there mine Rebecca Faye's living room today. He's not robbing hearts. He's not robbing trains. He's out there making money, dealing deals, hunting bad guys. It's the man of the law, maybe. I don't know. I'm putting you into a role that I'm not sure if you're agreeing to. You're the deputy sheriff today, Mr. Tyler Smith.
I am definitely the fun police today.
You are the fun police of roads, and we're all gonna get
You better not be robbing them banks, Olivia. I am on to you. You and your wily ways.
Of course, Sheriff.
Oh my God.
Okay, Arthur.
Okay, Arthur.
Hey there, partner. I hope that you guys called out to everyone in the game, because that was my thing, where I'm like, just greeting, and it's just, you hear hey there, partner, like probably 3,000 times in a row.
I know.
I'm seared into my brain now.
I did have a soft spot in my heart for, like, I would hunt Jack down just so that he would go, hi, Uncle Arthur, and I'd be like, yes! My child!
My child.
My boy! My son! Alright, well, we are here today to talk about Red Dead Redemption 2, since we are all together in person. For once in a year. Once a year, I think.
Once a year. That's all we can stand each other for.
Oh,
well, there's too much crime in this room.
Just way too much crime.
And I run out of my NPC dialogue after too many hours, so.
Sorry. 100-hour work weeks.
Yeah. There's a lot of reasons why this doesn't work out. But, obviously, since we're all gathered here.
We're gathered here today.
Marriage.
Dearly beloved.
To join in holy matrimony ourselves in that cowboy game that just never fucking wants to end. That's going to be really bad on the recording later.
That's okay.
But that's fine. I listen to it in my car, so the sound isn't that great anyway. So we played Red Dead Redemption 2, maybe 6 months after everybody else played Red Dead Redemption 2. I feel like a lot of people...
It's been 3 months. That's not too bad, and honestly...
It's been 84 years!
Yeah, it's true.
It does feel like that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're playing it, sometimes I'm just like, really?
Well, I remember I was saying, oh yeah, it came out in November, and you're like, actually it came out in October.
And I think you just went, ah!
Yeah. I was like, wow, I haven't done anything with this game. I've been hunting too much.
It's such a long game, too. I feel like that game, there's just so much to do in the game, and there's just, a lot there, and I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but I was like, I'm gonna play some Red Dead, and I was like, this is too much right now, I'm just opening this Pandora's box, so I'm gonna just, play Hearthstone for 5 minutes and go to sleep, because I can't handle this right now.
No, it's very true. The other day, I think I had, maybe 2 hours to play, and so I sat down for my 2 hours, and it took me 2 hours to do one quest, because I had to go across the whole map to do the goddamn quest, and I was like, shit, this is why it takes 200 hours to get 4 chapters in.
Yeah.
There was multiple nights where I was like, today's Red Dead night, we're just gonna get through it, and it was 5 hours later, I'm going to bed at 5 a.m., and then he's like, how many missions to do? And I'm like, 1. I was hunting the rest of the time, I didn't actually play the game.
You do have to be in a certain kind of zone,
yeah.
I feel like. If you're not in the zone to just be plug in, then...
So I powered through it to chapter 6, the end of chapter 6.
I have to give you so much credit for doing that because 3 days ago I was like, nope.
I was, like, determined. I was like, okay, I have 40 quests left, and we're recording on Tuesday. So if I do... I know, I was like, oh, it's just 40 quests.
And you have 40 quests.
If it's like a quest an hour, that's 40 hours. Okay, the weekend is 72 hours.
Oh my god, you were like min-maxing your weekend.
I can totally do this, you guys. And like, what happened? I did all of Chapter 5 actually half of Chapter 5, all day Saturday. And like, I did Chapter 6, half on Sunday, and then half the remaining like 2 hours Monday night. It's a lot. Like, and that was just me focusing on quests. Like, I wasn't like going around doing stranger missions, hunting, fishing.
Yeah.
Just, riding my horse wherever it goes. But like, it was just the quests. And that was so long.
Yeah.
For the missions. And I was like, wow, this is just dragging.
So what day did I leave? It was like Thursday night, I had finished, like, up through... I'd started Chapter 6, and I was like, okay, well, I could just stay up all night, and then like, work a little bit, and get on my flight, and I could finish this. And then I was like, okay, I need to sleep. It's not happening. Mm-hmm. And then my flight got delayed, and I was like, this is a gift from God. I have to finish it now. And so I had a flight at 6 a.m., and I stayed till 3 a.m. playing the game, and I was like... All right, well, I saw the ending, and I played a little bit of that epilogue, and I'm good to go. That epilogue was something else.
I remember, I think that was the day you came in our chat and was like, never do the sins that I have just did to myself.
Yeah, my body hurt. It still hurts. I'm still trying to fix the issues that I've done to myself.
Well, we start off a pod about a game that never wants to end. So I have, one of my, questions going in was, we did a cast... I don't know. I started to think, and I'm like, I don't actually know when we did that cast. Anyway, is it on our backlog, or do we actually publish it? Who knows? At some point in time, we talked about Red Dead 1.
That was... We released that. That was like one of our first episodes, I believe that... Or it was an episode that, like, was just before we started publishing.
I think we
very
published
recent.
it.
It was last year.
I think we published it because I remember I got a single week of PlayStation View for free, and I decided to play all of Red Dead Redemption 1 over like 5 days so that I didn't have to pay for PlayStation.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, so I
feel like we published it.
Not a way to play that game, but you could do it in 15 hours, just in case you need a baby break from what you just did. FYI, I clocked out at 15 hours and 30 minutes. So, Olivia, you and I both played Red Dead 1, obviously. And so, going into Red Dead 2, like, I remember you being kind of, pretty cool. Like, you were excited about it, I feel like. I was worried that they were going to do the thing that they did in Red Dead 1, which, spoiler, they did it again in this game. So, how do you feel, like, from your perspective, I'm interested knowing that you played Red Dead 1, you came into the game, and then, like, how did that sit for you? Was it, like, the Kingdom Hearts thing where it's like, my childhood game is back and I'm empowered? Or was it more like, what the fuck?
So, I think one of the things, because I think we both got spoiled a little early on. And like, we did not finish the game not knowing that information that Arthur dies in the end. Mm-hmm. And I guess we should put a spoiler warning. Yeah, I mean, this is...
I'll do it at the beginning.
7 minutes in, Arthur dies.
Yeah, Arthur dies of malaria. It's not a fun death for him. TB, I'm sorry, not malaria.
It was like malaria.
He did spend some time in Cuba. I mean, he was out in the islands. He sunk a couple of boats. It's fine. He could have had that.
He lived a long... He lived
a very long, hard 36 years.
Yeah, right.
So
it's a different time.
I think we have different feelings because I never really liked John as a character. Like, I really am not a huge fan of John. And
for some reason, I always thought you were like a John stan.
So I like Red Dead 1, and I like the story that it tells, but like John, I could kind of give or take.
Oh, yeah.
But
that's fair.
So then when I learned that Arthur wasn't going to be around, and I feel like I'd grown to the point where I'm like, I really like Arthur. Like, Arthur seems like not a great person, but he seems like a well-developed character that I really enjoyed. And I was like, well, that's why I could do side quests, because I'm not going to do this with John, because fuck John. I gotta get all the collectibles. I have to do everything with Arthur, because I like him so much. Yeah. And I'm not really ready to let that go. And that was at the... that right too. Yeah, and that was at the point where I had finished, and I knew he was going to get, like, TV, so I was like, well, I don't want to have my boy be sick, so I'm going to protect him for as long as possible. So that's why I spent so much time in Chapter 3, like, grinding up side quests, hunting, and stuff like that.
Sure.
And it's like, I can't think of another game where I've actually had that connection with the character. Like, I've actually liked them enough to be like, hey, I don't want to lose you. You know what I mean? Like, Ares dies in Fallout 7, whatever, fuck it. Like, it's not a big deal for me.
Lots of ice.
Yeah. Arthur felt like a more well-developed character that I really loved. How did you feel about Arthur's death?
Yeah, I had a very similar feeling to you. I have to tell you how I got spoiled. So I was spoiled because I have a couple of guys that I play with. We play like Overwatch, we play multiplayer games together. That's just what we do, right? And I check in every once in a while. You know, we play Destiny together, we played Dead by Daylight, whatever. And so they played Red Dead when it came out. They were like ready to mainline the storyline because they wanted to play online and already have the knowledge of what happens in the game, like assuming it was going to carry over. Which obviously, like in Grand Theft Auto Online, it's completely meaningless. Everything is made up, and the points don't matter. And so they had finished the game like 3 days after. Like they finished the game, I think before I even unwrapped mine. And so I sat down and played it, and so we would be on chat and I would be playing it, and they would be asking me questions, and they were like, "Oh, we don't want to spoil you, whatever." And I did the quest with Thomas Downs, the money lending and other sins, I think, with Strauss, where he could track it. Yeah. And then what I thought was interesting is that they showed Arthur, like, kind of coughing in scenes later. Like, he would just kind of have a little bit of a cough. Mm-hmm. And I started to think, like, oh, no, this is bad. Like, he's going to be sick. And I sit over them. I was talking to them over headset, and I was just like, I don't know, I'm really worried. I think Arthur's going to have, like, tuberculosis and die. And it was just dead silent.
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh, is that what happens? And they kind of were like, do you want us to tell you?
Aww.
So I accidentally spoiled myself because I guessed.
You're too smart.
Yeah. I was just like, but that's the thing, is like, I felt really dialed in to Arthur from like the very first moments with him.
Yeah.
And so of course it was just like, my boy, I must be protected of all times. And I tried to feed him, and I made him go to bed, and I made him take baths, and I combed his hair, and I shaved his beard, and I love him. He's like my little Pokemon. I got to dress him up.
Your Tamagotchi?
Yeah.
I think one thing that I really liked doing, because I was like, I kept my boy really shaved, and I was like, you know what,
he's super coiffed.
Yeah, well, and then eventually I was like, you know what, I want to see what a 10 looks like. I want to see what a 10 hair
Did you go like, and like you did the
hair
beard?
Yeah, I just chugged hair tonics. I just kept doing it until I was like, he's finally, he's so, and like, I usually am not a big, so I'm like, oh, I want my boy to look at him. I'm usually not like a big fan of facial hair.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? He's just going to rock it until the very end of the game. And I was like, you know what? No, you need to be taken care of. I want to clean you up. You got to have like your hair pomade. Yeah. You got to look nice. I got to shave you down.
Die with a little dignity, Arthur.
Yeah, and I was like, I forgot how attractive Arthur was.
He has a great face.
Yeah.
Like everything about that is just beautiful.
Very strong chin. Unlike Suzanne Kennedy's.
True.
I've been watching a playthrough of Red Dead 2, and I get now what you mean, because he has like a cleft chin, but then from the side he doesn't have a chin at all. And so it's just weird to have like a drawing of a chin.
Yeah, anyway, in Resident Evil 2.
Right.
Not related to this.
Yeah.
So Tyler, on the conversation of strong chins,
so how would you rate Arthur? Is Arthur a daddy?
Yeah. Is Arthur a daddy?
What is Arthur on the daddy scale, though?
God, that's a good question.
He's kind of a thick daddy. Not in like.
Did you guys let your Arthur get skinny?
I could not feed him enough. He was always skinny. I don't know.
I was just like. It always said, "Oh, you're underweight," and I was like, "Okay."
Did it happen in Chapter 5? Like whenever TV kind of became over?
No, it was way before it.
No.
It was always like, "You're an unhealthy person."
My Arthur was always like, "Yeah."
And then like my horses were too. I'd bring my horses in the stable, and they'd be like, "You're not taking care of this horse," and I'm like, "I don't know what to tell you. I'm feeding it and brushing it whenever it's hurt, like whatever." I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah.
You're not physically stuffing oat cake in his mouth and then accidentally pressing the wrong button and choking your hand.
So like I didn't understand that mechanic of the game where it was like, oh, you're under, over, or like whatever the ideal weight of things. I was like, I don't think it really matters. There's no penalties. I'd run faster.
I love that he starts at perfect and then you just never get back.
I don't know what perfect looks like.
I always have my boy like eating like all the meats because I would just always use Deadeye because I was like, this is cheating the game. And then so he was like he was like a chunky boy until the very end. And then
I want chunky Arthur. Mine was
medium chungus.
He was medium chungus. He wasn't full chungus until the very end. And I was like, man, he looks too skinny. He's got to eat. And I'm just like feeding him all the food as he has TV, like in the later stages of the game, and it's like he's not gaining weight.
He's all like sunken.
Well, because so what I did kind of appreciate because I wasn't spoiled. I didn't know this was going to happen, and even when it did,
so it was a complete surprise for you.
Yeah, but like it didn't hit me like a truck.
Oh, okay.
I was just like, okay. So when it happened, I was on my way to go see Sadie, Miss Adler.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it was in Chapter 5 or whatever when it happens.
The scripted moment where he's going to be.
And like I was on my horse, and all of a sudden, like my world is like tilting, and like the Technicolor goes up, and like what's going on? Like did someone poison me or like because that happened before where like I encountered the night people.
Yeah. Oh, okay, gotcha. I was thinking of the part where he gets like hit with the blow dart and like it's
that happens.
And then he's like,
you know what? That happens too. That happens too.
Yeah.
So that happens too. But also I just thought like night people.
Yeah.
Or what are they called? Night stalkers.
The night folk.
Night folk.
Fuck the night folk.
Fuck them. But we'll talk about them later. Anyway, so that moment where Arthur was like just falling off the horse and like sick, I didn't know why, and it was like, oh, he is seriously ill. He has tuberculosis. But then I was like, okay, well, we can manage this, and like he'll die eventually. Like, but I don't know if it's gonna be a hero's death or it's just like I'm gonna grow to be an old man, and eventually my system will fail on itself, not seen outside of the game's realm, you know. But I was like.
Oh yeah,
knowing this game, probably not. He's probably gonna go down in a gunfight. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so like that was my experience with that. But what I noticed that was different was suddenly when I ate things, it said, "Oh, you're sick."
Yeah.
You have like minimal effects from the food, whatever. So I have to eat now like more food to gain the same amount of effect.
So I had to get that system explained to me because I kept just feeding him because I'm like, why is he not getting the effect? And it's like, oh, that doesn't reset until he goes to sleep. And then you get the full effect back.
Yeah.
So then I was just like, I feel like...
At that point, there's no reason to feed him because I might just go to sleep.
Well, Arthur, you're just going to die.
You're just going to starve.
Well, I don't know how fast and loose you guys... Because I started the game role-playing, and then like sleeping and like eating and coming back and doing chores and stuff.
I honestly thought that the camp relied on me to hunt for them. And so that's what I was doing.
So did I.
Whoops.
Well, yeah, and eventually I was like, you know what? No, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to, like, go from mission to mission or just keep hunting because I was doing all of, like, the challenges. And then it wasn't until the very end of the game where it's like, you need to go back to sleep. And I was like, oh, yeah, I kind of forgot that I was in this, like, mode of, like, being in the campsite sleeping. And then chapter 6, it's, like, a little too late. It's like, you can't do any, like, chores or anything. It's like, oh, well, everything sucks. And I kind of don't want to be here right now because everyone, like, hates each other.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah.
That's interesting how your first interaction with the camp is like very welcoming. You're like, I love this place. And then the last camp, as it progresses, the last camp, you're like, I don't want to be here, and I'm gonna stay away from here as much as possible.
I do feel like the way that they handle, like, oh, like Scott Dutch's ear is like almost cartoonish. I feel like a lot of this game is very... It's done very well. Yeah. And then when things don't have that high level of characterization or like don't seem realistic, it really stands out. Like when we're talking about like the campsite, I'm like, I'm talking to these people and it's all making sense. And then at the end of the game where I'm like, hey, let's talk about this. Come here, like Javier, let's talk about this. He's like, I got nothing to say to you. And then he just keeps saying that line every time. And I'm like, man, this is like
that was a big thing that I was really frustrated with was I felt like it did not make sense who turned on you.
Yes.
And there was no reason for them to turn on you. And so especially because they were like, play with high honor and you get a different ending. And like there were different endings. It's not that.
Right.
But it was like, for some reason, like you could have been bro time cowboy fun zone with Javier, which I was because I loved Javier.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, I hate you now. And it's like, but I didn't. Like how on earth
it's just like he aligns with Dutch more than you, and that's all that matters.
Which is interesting because a lot of the people who picked Dutch in the end were people who the whole time had been like I don't know if Dutch knows what the fuck he's doing.
Right. Well, and like, I'm like, Micah doesn't seem like a charismatic person.
He actually is like literally awful. Like when they introduce him in that sequence where you have to go save him in Valentine, and he's just like, we're gonna kill everybody.
That mission was just fucking awful. I was like, whoa, this is the second mission I'm doing. Like this game goes hard. Like what the fuck?
Welcome to your first 750.
And it was just like, it was what's his face from Grand Theft Auto 5? Trevor. It was just the Trevor of the game, and I was like, okay, Rockstar, this is your trope, I guess.
I think that there's something about how they handle this game where it's like, oh, everyone's like a little empathetic, like the characters are like seem to be actually characters, not just ciphers like Trevor. And then Micah feels like a remnant of a draft that happened when old Rockstar they just like brought back. Like there's just certain missions like the electrocution mission, like the electric chair, where I'm like, why is this in here? Like
it's another torture scene.
Yeah, and I'm just like, this just seems like it doesn't really have like a character purpose or anything. It's just you're like, haha, guy got electrocuted, isn't that funny? And you get to watch this really like twitchy animation.
Yeah.
So I just feel like there are parts of the story that seem like they come from different drafts of a story that's been revised 1,000 times.
Totally. Especially, like, I think, too, about that Stranger mission with the carnies.
Yes.
Where you have to, like... And to me, that was, like, totally classic Rockstar. But, you know, it's always weird when they're like, here's your serious Cowboy Man sad game, but then let's laugh at, like, a little person.
Yeah.
Because he's a magician, and he does magic, and he yells at you. It was just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
That's like that. Weird flex, but okay.
Right. I never completed that one Stranger Mission. Not that we're talking about Stranger Missions right now, but like...
That's okay. I did, and you can go see them, and they're like a hot mess.
You talked about that. I would love to.
Did.
Let's talk about that later when it's the Stranger's time. But.
It is weird though. I think the point that you're making about how Micah does feel like an old draft.
Yeah,
and there's like a point where the character, I don't know if Arthur does, but I feel like some of the other characters just kind of like fall apart for some reason. And then I guess maybe they wanted to get you from like Red Dead 2 Bill and Javier to like Red Dead 1 Bill and Javier, where they are off the rails, but it's still like doesn't feel earned, I would say.
I guess there's just so much room in the story, and there's so many missions that I'm like, oh, we're gonna go on a hot air balloon ride, like, oh, we're gonna do
so funny.
That was nice.
Which is cool. I really love
and
those
John's
moments.
out on Gertie too,
Yeah, but it's just like, and there's all these hunting stuff, and I'm like, man, I wish they could have like maybe cut back on these extra systems and like focused in on these character moments, because like you put so much time into the story, and it's just like, hey, we're gonna throw a million things at you without having to like actually have those character moments like we did at the start of the game. It just feels like things kind of start careening out of control at the very end there.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I mean, that could also be like intended, like they want things to be careening out of control because that's kind of what's going on. That's the whole point of the story. But I totally understand what you're saying.
Like the focus of the story.
Well, because it's funny, like the beginning is definitely like very focused on these people and their, you know, the interrelationships, personal relationships that they have with each other, and like just what they are and how they relate to the world and like just what's going on. That's like what literally I think chapters 1 through 3 and maybe 4 like focus on, and it's really good. Like I really enjoyed the beginning of this game. It wasn't until like I decided to like press through it that I was like, I don't know how I enjoy this story anymore. And
I think that the character of Arthur kind of like, so it pulled me through to be like, okay, well, at least we get to see some, like, his eventual turn towards Dutch makes sense to me. But everything else about that ending kind of does not ring true in the characters that they presented. So that was the part where I'm like, I don't know about this, guys. Why are y'all turning on me? I've done nothing but good things to you. And, like, it's not like he's ever proven to be a rat in any way. It's like, who the fuck trusts Micah? You just killed a town. Like, whatever, guys.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I struggled with a lot, too, is that Micah was not super present, really, for a lot of the game. Like, you have that issue in Valentine. He's kind of hokey-dokeying around. You do, like a stagecoach robbery here, a whatever there. But generally, he's, like, not involved. You know what I mean? Until then, it's like... You know, Dutch is telling you...
Until we get to Saint-Denis, and then he's, like, more involved for some reason.
Yeah, so he just kind of shows up at the end and is like, by the way, if you haven't figured out I'm the bad guy, like, you probably knew this already, but I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We knew this when second mission in St. Valentine.
It does feel like the characters
are... Strawberry.
Yeah, it was Strawberry.
It's Strawberry.
Shit,
That's okay. No, it's okay.
It does... I think that is kind of a big issue with the game, is that the characters are a series of platitudes, like where you have Arthur, who's like, perfect. And I loved him, and I want to protect him with my life. And then you just had, like, a series of, like, up and down characterization where it's, like, as an example, I thought that Dutch was done very well. I thought that his kind of emotional falling apart was done really well. And I thought his motivations were telegraphed really well. So, like, as an example, I think back a lot to, like, I know at the end he starts, like, leaving people for dead. He's just kind of, like, fucking, like, whatever, save myself. And I think about that mission, I think it's in maybe chapter 3, maybe chapter 4, I don't really remember, where Micah sets up this meeting between Colm O'Driscoll and Dutch, because they're gonna, like, we're gonna be pals again, which obviously is not gonna happen. And Arthur gets kidnapped, and he has to escape from the hut and all that stuff, and when he crawls back to the camp, he says to Dutch, were you gonna come get me? And then there's a pause, and Dutch goes, of course I was, son. Like, yeah. And I was like, like, oh, there it is. Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I felt like that was done really well. But then compared to, like, hello, I'm Micah, I'm a cardboard cutout, I'm here to be evil, boo-boo, like, you know what I mean? That was really weird.
Totally. Like, I'm here to murder people and be the person you can hate unequivocally.
And here's an interesting thing, I had a white hat, and Arthur had a black hat, and so we really turned this whole ding-dang-dong trope around,
didn't we? It's like Westworld, y'all.
It's like Westworld, but then backwards.
One thing, as we're talking about character, and I think this kind of falls under Arthur's characterization, was the horse. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm like, oh, the horse was like a character in itself that I was like, you just kind of exist and you're fun. And then I went and got the silver horse. There's like one of them in the game, so I was like trying to complete some of the challenges.
Oh, really? So you got a special horse?
Yeah, it's the one that Dutch rides. You can get one of them without buying it before the epilogue or whatever. It's like the Arabian, the white horse. And so if you go up to like where up north, like next to the
I tried to find this for hours and I gave up.
Yeah, there's like one of them, so if you scare it, you're fucked. Yeah. So I got it, and then I was like, okay, I guess you're my horse. And I got it in chapter 3, and I'm like, well, you're probably gonna like be like temporary horse or whatever. And I rode it around the entire rest of the game. And then I was I heard the spoiler that it's like your horse dies at the end, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Wait, it does?
That just happens.
Yeah.
Like
they didn't put that in the. God.
So you can't bring any of your horses you have. Even your horse that you're riding at the time will die, and the other horses are just gone.
Yeah.
So because then we have to switch to John and John's ponies.
Yes, exactly.
That makes me mad. That's like unfair to the horse.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, it's funny though. So yeah, it was a little heartbreaking to see. I was like, oh no, because the horse, he gets shot, and John is like, Arthur, we gotta go because they're both trying to escape with each other.
On you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, right. But John our Arthur is very like, no, like give me a moment here with my horse. Is like, there, girl, there.
And I know I have a soft spot for animals, and it's just like, that's me. But I'm just like Arthur dying, like I kind of know what's going to happen, but the horse dying, I'm just like, oh my god, I love you, horse, and I'm so sorry that you died. You're my good girl. Oh no. And I feel like Arthur's relationship with his horse, like it's like, you're my
He's
girl.
like respectful.
Like that's his relationship, the only person that he cares about. Like he doesn't have a dog or anything, it's his horse.
Yeah, he almost like thanks the horse. Like
he says thank you at the
end.
Does he say thank you?
I can't remember. Yeah, so he's like thank you. He thanks the horse.
When he's like he's dying.
He's dying.
He knows he's dying. He's like trying to help, and it's just like he has to take that moment. And it's like, I know it's cliche, and I know it's playing to my weaknesses, like my emotional weaknesses. Because like anytime an animal gets injured, it's like that's gonna like the dog can't die at the end of the movie. I'm just gonna stop watching it. Yeah. So that's why I haven't watched John Wick yet. So
well, I feel like,
but I can get behind John Wick because the dog dies and then he goes on a fucking murder spree,
rampage.
Yes, I would.
Which is why I don't understand what I haven't seen John Wick 2 and John Wick 3 is coming out, but I know that both of them are fantastic movies still. But I'm like, well, if the motivation for John Wick 1 was the dog dying, what happens in John Wick 2? Like, I assume it's just like more. You killed my boss, or whatever.
I'm here to kill.
Well,
but anyway,
I just feel like that, like Arthur as a character who has empathy, which I think is a big thing that I've been thinking a lot about compared to like Grand Theft Auto, where it's like all these characters are despisable and you hate them.
Yeah,
like at least John or at least Arthur is like someone that has relationships and it cares about people and like makes friendships and connections. Where it's like you usually don't get that from a Rockstar game.
And comparing, Grand Theft Auto 5 from Red Dead Redemption 2, as Arthur, your good and or bad deeds, depending on how you play, they feel more important, or like they feel more like they're going to they being a good cowboy, like most of us probably played, it means more, and like it actually shows and has like a not necessarily a reward, but it makes you like a good cowboy. Like it just makes you feel better. It makes you feel good. Whereas in Grand Theft Auto 5, it's just like you do a good deed, but like fuck off. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Did you guys?
No one recognizes it.
Right. Did you guys do the? So I found out that if you're like a dick in the camp to enough people,
somebody will punch you.
Yeah, someone will punch you. And I'm like, I want to see that.
No,
so I
couldn't do it.
Well, I could never. I don't know if I could ever play.
Well, so I saved the game, and then I was like, I'm gonna try this, and then I was like being a dick, and I'm like, that's not like Arthur.
You're just like you're just antagonizing. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Because it's so funny that they would like have you give you the option to antagonize your camp, like. Dude, this is your family. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
why would you antagonize them?
The whole time, it would make more sense why Javier would be like, fuck you.
Yeah,
like, specifically for Javier, is like, I guess you just ran away from your revolution that you started. And I'm like, there is like another aspect to this story that I kind of wish that I had seen. Because I feel like the ending would have made more sense. Like, if you played a more even, like, middle-of-the-road character, I'm like, okay, some of these character actions probably would have made a little bit more sense. And you would have been like, Arthur's kind of an asshole. He is the kind of person who, like, beats the shit out of people to collect their debts.
Yeah.
That's the reason why is, I think I've discussed on the podcast in the past about how I try to be a good cowboy, but the game punishes me for being a good cowboy because it really wants you to be a bad cowboy. I wish that whole good, bad cowboy, like, meter was gone.
Exactly, yeah, I totally agree.
And I think what was a really weird choice was to put you in the position of kind of wanting you to be maybe middling or bad, But then they also gave Arthur a lot of moments of like really intense emotional awareness, whether it was just him writing in the journal, whether it was him kind of recalling the events of what happened, or even like there's those moments where you can sit down with Mary Beth and you could sit down with her and be like, you know, I'm a bad person. Like, I've killed a lot of people. I don't know what to do. And she'll kind of comfort you. And so, like, that piece, that Arthur, that, like, emotionally intelligent Arthur doesn't really jive with, like, fuck you, Javier. You bailed on Mexico when you could have really done something and now they're owned by a warlord. You know what I mean?
Right. I do
like,
I do wonder what like Rockstar's intent is when developing these games, where it's like I remember back when I played Grand Theft Auto 3 as like a 10-year-old or whatever, being like, ha ha ha, I can kill everyone, it's so funny. Isn't this great? And then, like,
that sounds so bad.
How that compares to like who is the average player? Because I feel like most people that I talk to are like, well, I can never be like, and I think this is like me playing Mass Effect to be like, I can't be Renegade. That's crazy. And that's the same thing here, where it's like, well, why would I be mean when I could be nice? You know, like what's the point of being that character? And I wonder if maybe we're the outliers here. And there's like more.
Have you guys played Red Dead Online? Because everyone in it is an asshole, so I just assume those are the people playing the game.
That's true. I did not play. I will never touch. I've never touched anything online with Rockstar, and I don't want to because I just know that there's assholes out there, and that's not who I am. If I'm ever in the mood to grief someone, I will finally log on. But like, I don't want to.
Do what I did: get yourself a 14-year-old who just wants some adults to play with, and then let him murder your enemies for you because he has infinite Deadeye just because he's 14. And I'm like, whatever. I'm like, that man hurt me, and he's like fucking railing off in his car. I'm like,
amazing. In his cowboy car.
He actually, and so what we used to do is he's like a tank, and so he would sit on the back of my horse and just like gun.
That's amazing.
And I would just ride through the town because I was too scared to do anything else. And so I was like dodging and weaving on my pony, and he was just shooting people like a tank. It was extreme. I'm also very sorry if we shot anybody listening because I got drugged behind a horse until I died.
Wait, is that a thing that can happen?
Yeah, I got lassoed and drugged behind somebody's horse until I was killed.
I grabbed a person, but I feel like there's an element of griefing digitally where it's like, and in these games, I feel like they encourage you to grieve. Like, they're like, hey, here's a list of everyone.
Because
here's the map, and here's the people you could kill, and it's like, they're probably going to kill you first.
Here's a map of killable people.
Yeah, make your decision about what you're going to do. Whereas, like, in the single player, it's like, well, like, why would you go on a killing spree? There's really no benefit to it. And I'm like, maybe that's a weakness of the game, where it's like, I kind of had more than enough money to do what I wanted.
Yeah.
Same.
I'm interested to hear.
Like, what, $2,000 was like my hangout, like 2,000 something.
Yeah. So that was
my me.
That was a really interesting thing because since they rebalanced so I know you didn't play Red Dead 1, but in Red Dead 1, money was not historically accurate, so you would have like $1 bajillion for nothing.
For no reason.
Yeah. And so I know that they tried to be more like, oh, you robbed somebody and you only got $1.50 and that was at life savings. You know what I mean? Like, I realized they tried to take that route, and you know, at the beginning of the game, like especially chapter 2 and 3, I was fucking scrounging. I was like selling everything, and then something happens, and then suddenly you have $3,000.
You would do that one robbery. You rob a stagecoach.
Yeah,
there's a stagecoach, and you get like $1,000 or something like that.
And then after that, it was like,
and then you rob the bank like immediately after that, and you're like,
yeah, it was the bank.
Okay, because I feel like I bought every gun. Customized everything, but I by the end of the game I bought every piece of clothing because that's what I wanted to do was to have. I wanted to be
that's what I did too. I just wanted to play dress up cowboy.
Yeah,
exactly. And I'm like, this is fun, and like, but like, why would I be evil if I had all these options? Whereas like, I'm like, if they gave you more interesting things to do, where you're like an evil person who could like,
it was more morally gray.
Right, because I feel like that's what Red Dead 1 did, where it was like if you were like the extreme of either end, you could get special items or something like that, like a special horse, I believe.
Oh, yeah, there was, like, the super evil nightmare hell horse that would show up.
Isn't that Micah's horse, actually?
Is it?
I think it is. Like, I think I read that. That's, like, the name of the horse matches what Micah's horse is.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's good. I wouldn't be surprised. That's a good one.
That would be a gigantic tell.
Yeah.
So,
straight away.
I just think that, like, I didn't want to be mean, and, like, that game expected me to be mean in some aspects for the character actions to make sense.
Tell me about Fashion Cowboy. How did you dress up your Arthur? I just need to know.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, the first time I got money and I could afford an outfit, I loved Arthur's starting outfit. Mm-hmm. So I went and bought him, like, a really nice-looking, samey version of it. So he just wore, like, a really nice, expensive version of his shitty normal wardrobe the whole game. I was really determined. He looked so good. He just blew us his color.
Let me see.
Gorgeous.
I don't remember what the hell any of the articles of clothing are called, but I wore, like, the I want to call it the Breaking Bad hat.
Was it the flat top hat where it's like
you had a pork pie on?
Yeah.
Well, no, it was like flat on the top and then like a round one, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Was it like a boater hat?
I believe, yeah, but it was like a long, because it was like a ranch hat. It's like
yeah,
it's like a rancher's hat or whatever.
Right. I think I wore that one too, and
I wore that, but then I had this really nice red leather jacket on.
Ooh.
With and it had like the little loops with like that would go over the buttons.
Was it the Saint Denis? Because that was what I always wore, where it had like the red vest and you looked just like fucking fancy as hell.
No, well, yeah, I don't know. That's yes, okay. Probably. And then like I think my vest was black though.
Oh, okay.
So like, I'm talking about the jacket. Like this is just the jacket. And then I don't know, the shirt didn't matter because you didn't see it. And then like my pants, I wore some whitewashed jeans and like put on some tan cowboy boots and like spurs and anyway, it was my Arthur looked really nice. He wasn't like super fancy, he wasn't dapper, but he also wasn't like this rough and tumble, unwashed, unshaven cowboy. So
I usually wore the Saint Denis, which came with a pork pie by default, and so it looked like he belonged in like England circa like 1800s, like beating up people, like on, like being part of like the organized crime.
He was like, what is it, Peaky Blinders?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and I also I was going to the Trapper a lot because I was like, I want to get like dumb outfits, and one of them is like a skunk hat. So I started having one.
Yes.
It looks so bad, and I'm like, yes, skunk hat.
You know, I definitely wanted to do the Trappers outfits because they are ridiculous. I wanted to be.
You could have been all snakeskin, just like fucking out there. Like, look, check out my alligator boots. Boom.
I wanted to be like the buffalo set because it was just like
that's a really good
huge hat that you wear that's gigantic.
Did you? It was so stupid. And I got the bear hat too. And
Did you have to like manifest Destiny the buffalo in order to get it?
Yeah, I felt kind of bad. Like I felt. So I think this is a different conversation, but I think one of the things I felt bad about is like, I recently stopped eating meat, like, besides fish. And so I'm like trying to empathize with animals a little bit more. Sure. And I feel like the way that you kill those animals, and like, especially if you like, hit them in the butt or something, and then they fall over and they're just kind of twitching, like dying. And it's like, I'm like, I don't know about this, guys. Like, this is pretty fucked up. And especially like with the Ledger ones, I'm like, well, like, we're thinking about the environment and, like, current status quo, and it's like, we're just gonna kill the last buffalo, whatever, fuck you, like, or we're gonna kill this, like, super rare crocodile. I'm like, well, what'd you do to me except for try to kill me, which is fine, because I was in your swamp, that's not me. Sorry, Shrek. But, like, I don't know, I feel like that was something that got to me a lot, where I'm like, well, if I'm gonna kill you, I just gotta wear your stupid hat around it. It's like, this is too hot for me, but I'm gonna keep wearing this dumbass bear hat because it looks horrible and I love it.
Were you getting, like, status hits where it comes on and it tells you,
all
like...
the time. It's like, and I'm like, well, I'm not taking this off. I earned it, damn it.
Well, it doesn't help that, like, you spend, I feel like, the biggest bulk of your time in, like, Lemoyne, which is fucking abysmal nightmare zone. It's, like, currently at once a swamp and at once just the Dust Bowl, apparently. Yeah. Did you guys also have dust storms, like, 90...
I did not get any dust storms.
Oh my god, I had so many dust storms!
I feel like I had a lot of fog things, like up north and in Lemoyne, where I'm just, especially going through the swamp, where I'm like, why is this so foggy?
Oh, yeah.
I only got fog in the swamp at night, and that was the only time.
That was the best time for seeing ghosts.
That was the worst time for nightmen, the night folk.
The night folk. Like, did you guys go through Butcher Creek and then, like, have, like, the fog come in? Because I just kept thinking about the Murphy Brood or whatever, and I'm just like, because they just kept coming at me, and I'm like, why are you guys, like...
That was also a scary quest, too. The Murk blood.
When you go clear out the last camp.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I did that way earlier
They're
in the game,
fucking
I was just walking
scary.
around.
They're just scary as the night folk. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. I accidentally cleared it, and I was mad when I found out I had to clear it. Shit, I already did this.
But they have stuff in there, though. For you, I think.
Yeah, well, and I think you save a girl, right? There's like a girl who's gonna be
I mean,
So there's like a story reason.
I got upset with that part, and I totally, I died so many times that it said, hey, you can skip the cutscene and go straight to the thing, and I was like, yes, thank you, because there was this one guy with a machete that,
oh yeah, he just, guts you?
Gutted me every time, and I was like, I literally can't stop you. I don't know what to do, because it's the first time anyone's, actually ran at you.
Yeah.
Because throughout the, 9% of the game is everyone's far away with the gun.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, fuck you. And Charles didn't do shit, so Charles is stupid.
I had a hatchet, so I was trying to, there's one of the challenges, take a hatchet and get 3 kills in a row with the same hatchet. And that was it just worked out that I was on that mission, and I was like, this is perfect. And that felt fucking awesome, where you pick up a hatchet from the guy, do it the next one, and you're just like, I'm like, yes, I am the knight.
Oh my lord. So I know we've talked a lot about Arthur and about the other characters and also about the story, so I'm throwing my agenda to the wind. So I'm curious, just knowing that, like, you know, everybody dies or is run off or murdered or, I don't know, some other bad thing befalls them, except for, like, the 4 people who still make it to the epilogue. I'm curious to know, outside of Arthur, because I think that's not fair, because I think Arthur is always number 1 in everybody's heart. And outside of probably John, too, because I think there's a lot of backstory with him and history, and you end up playing him at the end, so you're kind of stuck with, like, you're gonna like it.
Yeah.
What of the other members of the gang stood out to you as maybe people that you really gravitated to, people you really liked, people you like going on missions with? Was there anybody in particular?
I feel like Charles is, like, my choice, just because he's like, seems like he's, like, that character has to do a lot of work. He's, like, black, he's native, or, like, First Nations, and, like, he's, like, the woke member of the crew who's like, hey, like, we're killing, like, you know, you're killing buffalo, and that's not cool. But I also think that he's, like, the only character with, like, semi-redeeming qualities that isn't, like, a total asshole, and he's, like, a plot device as well. But I did enjoy the missions I went on with him, because I'm like, oh, Charles gives a fuck about you, and especially, I was, like, running around for, like, ever trying to finish up side quests, and then Charles just, like, rolls up randomly. He's like, where are you? We were waiting for you. Like, because I was just, like, didn't go back to camp for, like, ever. He's like, you're a hard man to find. Like, come back to camp with me. And I'm like, sorry, Charles, I'll get there whenever.
That's funny.
Yeah, so Charles is number 1 with a bullet in my list.
Really? So, my favorite is Lenny. Until he dies.
Oh, my heart.
But then also, my other one was Hosea, but then he also dies.
Hosea is very good.
Yeah, Hosea is really... I
liked Hosea, because he was an old man, but he was old with, like, that wisdom, and, like, had something to say, and was, like, kind of a moral compass, just like Arthur. Well,
and I feel like he got
like
it.
Arthur.
And this is kind of, I think, a theme of the story is, like, pretty much anybody who kind of gets it at some point that's kind of the point where that's the end of you.
Well, he's like a father figure, like the only one who was like, hey, I've been through this, and, like, you're going to need to probably get out of this life at some point, Yeah.
I did not like John, actually.
Same.
Yeah,
having never played Red Dead Redemption 1 and playing this now, I didn't like John, at least at first. Like, I didn't... It wasn't until, like,
set up for you not to like him,
last...
sure.
Yeah, the last chapter, like, I accepted him. But, like, the whole game, I was like, John Marston, you're just fucking...
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Which I think is good that that's the, like, emotion that was elicited out of you, because that feeling is so pivotal to Arthur's understanding of John, because of that, like, sort of jealousy and frustration with the way that John is just, like, going through the world and taking care of his family when, you know, Arthur had so much of that taken away from him, that I think there's always, like, that's a really pivotal character moment. And so I think that it's good that that's, like, I think it was doing its job, if that's what you felt from the start.
I am interested, because that relationship between John and Arthur at the very end is very, like, tense, and, like, you get some hints as to why he does not trust John, Arthur. And I was wondering if I had the correct read on this, or what your guys' read was. It seems like, you know, Arthur was with the gang all the time. He's like, ride or die. Yeah. John just, like, takes off, leaves his family, like, whatever. Yeah. Arthur kind of steps in to, like, play that role to make sure that, like, the child, Jack, gets taken care of. Yeah. And then John just, like, comes back, and he's like, oh, I guess you're back then. Whatever. Fuck you. Yeah. Is that how you guys read that situation? Because I was trying to understand, like, where that animosity was coming from.
Yeah, for sure.
I think so, yeah. I mean, it was a while ago since I played that kind of part of the game, but I feel like the reason why I didn't like John is because he just didn't, like, do anything. He, like, compared to the other... Granted, you know, when we found him at the first chapter, he was, like, mortally wounded and, like, survived somehow still. And so it was, like, most of the time he spent with him was him recovering and not really being able to do anything. But, like, his ideals were just separate from what the gangs were. And it was just like, John, why are you here if you're not like Arthur is, ride or die? Like, why are you going on these missions? Why are you in our camp? Like, if you're not going to be a part of the group, just fucking leave. Like, you know, anyway. So that's probably the reason why I didn't like him, but, like, you're probably not just saying that. I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, yeah, that's probably why.
Well, I'm just, like, from the beginning of this thing, he's like calling John an idiot, if I remember correctly. Like, he always had that, like...
Yeah. He's like, John, you're stupid.
Yeah, which he is.
Well, you guys got the plot point about Arthur's family.
Yeah.
He was killed, right? So I think that was that's the hill that I think that he dies on. Is, like, I had this thing. It maybe wasn't what he wanted, obviously, because he was still in love with Mary, and that didn't work out.
And he did the same thing that John did,
kind of the
basically.
worst. But no, he tried. I feel like he tried to make it work. You know what I mean? So he would go and stay with them for periods of time, and he would give them money. And even if he wasn't there all the time, he was still like really dedicated to the gang.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what he sees maybe in John is he has the chance to do it right, and he has the chance to make this mean something, and he is like kind of fumbling with it because I feel like he's young, he doesn't really know what he's doing, you know what I mean? He seems kind of like scared of commitment. He kind of just sort of like, I don't know, you know what I mean? And so I feel like, to me, that was a lot of the animosity, was just this really frustration of like, you have this thing and I'm watching you fuck it up, like in front of me. Like, come on, man.
Right.
Don't
Well,
be like
I think it also has to do with John as a strong, independent man, and women can do whatever, be put in their place, and I'm the man, and I'm going to do whatever I want, which is kind of towards the epilogue, spoilers, I suppose. That's, like, literally the reason why things happen, is because he's like, Abigail, I am my own man, and I have to go do this thing, because I'm a man, and this is what I want to do, and Abigail obviously doesn't want him to go do it. But I feel like that also kind of coincides with everything else that you had just mentioned. And I feel like it's just, it hasn't clicked for him yet that even though he's his own man, he also has a fucking family, and regardless of whatever he does, his actions affect that family.
Right, and I think that's the end of Red Dead Redemption 1 is him kind of finally getting it and being like, because I think in the beginning of the epilogue, at least the parts that I played, where he's like, well, I'm gonna like clean up my act, Abigail. I won't kill everyone again. And then the first thing they do is like get into a fight. Yeah, get into a fight. And then like at the end of Red Dead Redemption 1, where it's like, hey, I'm gonna like just be with my family and try to do that. And that's like the character turn there.
Right, and he's trying to like backward parent Jack after like, you know,
that was another awkward thing. That was another awkward thing. Like, Jack was there in the camp, but like, where the fuck was John? It was just me and Jack. You know, it was just like, who's taking care of this kid? Abigail. I mean, Abigail should be taking care of the kid, I suppose, but like, it's not her responsibility 100%. Like,
I feel like at the end of chapter 6 was the part where I started seeing John, Jack, and Abigail all be together in the camp, which was a change, I think, because you had like John kind of doing something else.
Right.
Rebecca, who is the character that you felt the most attached to, you liked the most?
It was Javier Escuela, but I was frustrated based on his kind of character turn at the end because, you know, he's a really interesting character in Red Dead 1 because he literally is just kind of a plot device to get you to Bill. Because you go into the game and you're tasked with finding Bill Williamson. That's it. And so in your sort of long winding quest to get to Bill, you come across Javier, who's been sort of like helping him and kind of also kind of doing his own operations and stuff.
Shadows.
But you don't have to kill him. So he's the only character who is left of the gang that you don't actually have to kill. You can just kind of leave him. And the assumption is, I'm assuming that, you know, the Federales come and hang him probably. But you have the choice to not do this yourself. And John can say to Javier, like, this isn't about you. Like, this really isn't 100% about you. So I'm not going to do something bad here. And so I thought it was interesting from the start where Javier was someone who gave a shit. You know what I mean? He was the one that said to you, like, we are going back for John. Like, we are not going to fuck this up. We're not gonna, like, let everybody fall apart. And, you know, he was always someone who I feel like was around. He was the one that came and got me when I spent too much time away from camp. It was, Javier was the one who came and got me. Oh, really? I didn't think
that was different. That's crazy.
Yeah, so Charles never, I don't know if that depends on a thing, but yeah, he came out somewhere randomly and got me really early in the game.
I think he did for me too. I don't think Charles. I remember writing back at one point with Charles, and I had the option like, I'm going to go my way or I'm going to go with you. Yeah. But I think that was like a mission. Yeah. I think that was literally when we were trying to find the second or third place to camp out.
Yeah.
And that's when. But anyway, I think Javier came and got me too.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I just feel like it was a really weird flex to see him kind of die on that hill as somebody who, like, his whole backstory is he was a revolutionary.
Right.
Like, he was about bringing people together against something that was, like, kind of keeping them down. And even though
it was like explicitly he was against strongmen, right? Like, I thought that was kind of his whole thing.
Yeah, he was explicitly against strongmen. And so, like, he was a part of the group that you kind of deal with in Red Dead 1 who was fighting against this kind of basic, like, you know, hostile military takeover, essentially, of Mexico. And so it was really frustrating to see him take Dutch's side for a reason that I don't feel like was earned. So like I think that's the thing that I can't quite wrap my head around because he was so up until that point I feel like he was very all in on, you know, and so when Arthur comes back and he's like, this guy's the bad guy, and then everyone goes, nope, you're a liar. You know, it just is weird.
Well, and there's no hesitation with Javier, where I'm like, I understand that Bill has like limited capacities, or it's at least hinted at that.
Yeah, he's sort of like, who knows?
Yeah, but like Javier seems like he has a head, and like he has his own like agency, and that does suck that he didn't like actually use that. One thing we didn't talk about was Sadie, Mrs. Adler,
Miss Adler.
Yeah, and I think that she kind of does fit into that like action girl stereotype of like, I'm kick-ass and I'm here.
Okay, I'm sorry. We take her, she finally's like, please take me to do something, and she goes in and buys pants and then can shoot a gun when she puts pants on. I'm like, for real?
Well, the game doesn't treat women right in this. Like, it just doesn't.
I do have to give them credit for Karen, who I thought was great. So, like, she's the one that sets up the Valentine bank robbery.
Yes.
And she's the one who's,
I love the
she's like,
women.
here we go. Here's what I'm gonna do.
Right.
I'm gonna fucking ruin
But then
this.
at the end, though, she's just sipping on that bottle of whiskey.
I'm assuming that was
time.
related to Sean.
Yes.
Like, that's kind of what they implied, was that she kind of imploded once Sean was killed.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of, like when we talk about women and representation in the game, I'm like, who's the girl at Dutch is like,
Molly.
That is like sweet on Dutch. Yeah, Molly, where I'm like, her whole like character motivation is like, hey, I love Dutch, blah blah blah, and then like her only action is to be like
betray him.
The jilted lover, but she doesn't actually betray him.
Right.
Yeah.
But then like to get shot in the stomach, like
says.
that's her whole like arc. You know what I mean? And then Tilly's whole thing is like, oh, I get kidnapped, and then you have to come save me, and like racism, like that's like Whereas like,
well, did you guys get the stranger mission also with that the widow? That's way up north.
Mm-hmm. Oh, where she's trying to learn how to shoot?
Yeah. Literally, like, you find her and she's weeping over her fucking dead husband's grave.
Yeah.
And, like, it's implied that she had, like, just finished burying him. Mm-hmm. And then Arthur's kind of, like, sweet on her instantly. And I'm like, dude, you gotta, like, hold off. Her husband literally is, like, in the ground, not even cold yet. And and then he's like, let's teach you how to shoot. And all of her provisions are gone. But she's, like, the very dainty, like, I don't know how to do anything. Please kill this rabbit. Like, Arthur's like, yeah, let's go hunting. Like, well, I'll teach you what to do. Oh, but let me get the rabbit for you. But once I get it, like, you can go ahead and skin it and then cook it because you're a woman. I don't know.
Does Red Dead pass the Bechdel test? Because I don't actually know if it does.
Do two women talk? Yeah, because they talk about voters' rights. Remember that? They do. There's the gaggle of women who talk about that. I mean, technically, right? Like, that's the only thing.
I just wasn't sure, because I the point that you're making, I think, is interesting, where a lot of the women were kind of orbiting around Arthur. So you figure, with Tilly, Arthur, have to save her from being kidnapped. Mm-hmm. With Karen, she has to go play the damsel in distress so that you can rob the bank and do the work. With Mary, she's portrayed as being someone who's, like, really hot and cold. She's playing with you. Like, you have all these feelings for her, and she's just like, you know what I mean? Like, up and down.
I don't know what I want.
Yeah, Mary Beth is only there to, like, be your therapist. You know what I mean? I think there's... Yeah. And then you have somebody like Grimshaw, who's portrayed as being, like, really, like... She's just like, this is the bitch character. Here she's
is. Like the shrew that's like there.
Here she is. And then, like, Abigail's not nice too. You know, there's like a whole thing.
I feel like in the epilogue, the first mission, that's the mission I played, like, she's just kind of bitching at John. Like, that's the whole opening. And there is a sweet moment where it's like, oh, they're kind of like both sitting on the bed and like knock each other's heads together. Like, and that's a really cute, sweet moment. But I'm like, oh, you're either being like this really like shrewish character where you're just kind of yelling at John, or like you're the perfect wife who loves him and is going to be there for him, you know?
Right.
So even then, it's not written by women.
Yeah. Even then, though, if you like played the rest of the epilogue, Abigail takes Jack and like leaves John for a short period because John is his own man and doing things, shooting up people, and she doesn't like that. And she's like, I thought you would change. You're gonna change. And so he's like, okay, I gotta change finally because she left me, kind of. And, like, he goes and does all this stuff, and then, like, he finally builds this beautiful place for all of them to live, and then, like, the moment she gets there, it's like, well, woman, what's for dinner? And it's just like...
He does that in Red Dead 1, too. That really pissed me off. Do you remember that sequence when, after he does all of the murderings, after he kills Dutch, and Agent Ross returns his family to him, like, the first fucking thing out of his mouth is, like, what's for dinner? And Abigail's response is, like, do you think they sent me to cooking school when they kidnapped me? Like, do you legitimately think that is what happened, you stupid piece of shit?
Like, and it's even so let's say, that he says that, and it's just like, John, what have you been doing the last 3 months building this ranch? how have you been eating? You know, like, what have you been eating?
I can't eat unless a woman feeds me.
I mean,
I got this cured meat. I bought this cured meat.
I was just like, okay,
I am living
game.
off of beef jerky.
And that's what my Arthur did. He just ate beef jerky.
But I mean, I did like Miss Adler, though, because she was, like, a really strong, like, woman.
She was stronger without her husband, too. Like
Right, and that was another thing. She didn't need no man.
Yeah.
And I feel like
they didn't make her a love interest.
Like, she does have, I feel like her relationship to Arthur is also, like, one of camaraderie, which I think is what you're going where it's like, hey,
totally
we're not gonna, like, fuck or anything, and then, like, I don't even feel like it's hinted at. It's just, like, we're cool, and we're gonna be, like, shoot 'em up partners, which is fine. Yeah. Like, that fits the tone of the game. Mm-hmm. Just kind of, and maybe in that blog she does get some form of, like, redemption, quote unquote, and, like, can move on with her life, but it kind of feels like she's, like, Arthur specifically says, like, we're more ghosts than people. And I'm like, okay, are you though? Like, maybe you are, but it seems like she has, like, a place to go.
No, she's very, like, I am who I am and I know what I want and I'm going to go ahead and take it and get it. And, like, I think even, so in the epilogue, she mentions, when they're about to go get, Micah, she's like, I don't even know what I'm going to do after this. Like, once this is done, like, I don't know, maybe I'll go to Tahiti or whatever and, like, go basically seduce a powerful man with a lot of money and just live out the rest of my life there. And she's like, she'll just, you know, just that kind of person. It's really weird.
That's strange.
Or she's like, or I'll go and like be a guard for a mining operation or whatever. And
those are two very different things.
Very, you know, like it's very wide.
I just remembered the fucking God. What is the moneylender family? Like, okay, the family he beat up the husband, he died.
Briarwave?
No, the
Downs.
The Downs,
Mm-hmm.
and like that.
Oh yeah,
the mom.
She goes into prostitution.
Yeah, well, she goes into sex work, and it's just like, oh, this is like hitting every stereotypical beat that you could hit, and I'm like, I don't know if that didn't really feel like an effective moment for me, and I know we're talking about strangers here, but I'm just like, this is not what I want from this character in any way. Like, I'm like, okay, maybe there can be some kind of like fall, but it's like, oh, we're gonna just go straight for sex work, and then also like you give her money and she just goes right back to sex work, and I'm like,
I was gonna say, was that resolved because I gave her money, told her to get out of here, she didn't get out of here, and then like I tell her again, and she's like, okay, I'm moving, we're leaving.
Except I'm not.
And then she's not. But then, did that get resolved again, or is it just like Arthur's like,
that was
I'm
what I
fucking
saw as
done.
well, where he's like, what's her name?
Downs.
Is it Mrs. Downs? And then like she goes in the room with the guy, and that's it.
Well, no, the guy, she goes in the room, shuts the door on the guy, and the guy's like, thanks a lot,
partner.
Right,
that's it, actually.
I was getting laid until you came around, and it's just like, okay, dude,
that's all these
calm down.
Here whores is good for.
I feel like there's just something, so, you know, I believe we're all from Arizona, right?
We are.
Yes. And I think that there is like...
Howdy!
and I think that there is an element of Arizona culture, especially like where I'm from, like in Apache Junction, that area, where it's like, hey, you go to Goldfield Ghost Town, it's like the only role that women play is like sex work.
Yeah.
But like, at least in some of those stories, it's like, hey, like, sex work built the West. Like, they were like people who were in charge of owning buildings and like having businesses, and like women were in such a part of... And I feel like this story does not really empower women, except for,
you know
like...
what?
Yeah.
It's funny because I think about it, and there is not one single woman... So, let's see. Who handles a gun? Who's a woman? Miss Adler.
Mm-hmm.
Karen does.
Karen. Grimshaw.
Tilly. Does Tilly...
I don't think Tilly ever does. There's one more girl that I'm missing. No. When we go... It's a bounty. And it's like literally your first bounty.
Oh,
you go
about
find
Black
this.
Belle?
Yeah, she's the only other one because she's like with it. She's on a date with this dude, and then she like shoots him. And
I'm thinking of So when you do did you do the photography mission, Stranger mission, where you had to go take pictures of the?
I love that one.
Black Belle. She was one. She was really good, and she was the only one she was the only one you didn't have to kill, and she lets you take a rad picture of her.
Yeah,
right.
Black
Belle. So like those are the only women who handle gun. Otherwise, everyone that you kill in that game is a man. Like everyone, anyone in the Pinkertons or De Lobo or whatever, any of the gangs, they're all men. Not a single, not that I'm aware of. So I could be wrong.
No, you're right. I'm just like, this just kind of popped into my head while you're talking about especially how all the women kind of are sort of either orbiting around Arthur in some way, or also kind of weirdly romantic. So did you ever read the journal entry that Arthur writes about Black Belle after? No. He's like, if she were younger and I was looking, we would make a great, like, we could get married, basically. And I was just like, like, no! Are you kidding? You spent 5 seconds with her, and then she let you take a shit picture, and then I was like, fuck off right now.
And I feel like a lot of times that journal is like, oh, at least we're getting some more context, and it's never foisted upon you. It's like, you want to go find out more, that's great. And I also like little like pictures of the dogs he draws.
Yeah.
So,
Did you... So I know you guys didn't spend a lot of time in the epilogues, but John continues the diary.
Yes, he does.
And he can't draw. So he has...
I haven't seen that.
So he will do the same. So you know how Arthur will like draw the dogs, or he'll draw like you go to a landmark, a point of interest, and he'll draw it. Arthur will do, or John will do the same thing, but they're like really shitty.
That's funny because he mentions that because I was watching a playthrough and I was like, he mentions it. He's like, oh yeah, Arthur, I have his journal too. I started doing my own little drawings too, and I was like, oh, it must be like the same, iteration, or whatever. But it's totally funny to know that they're just shitty ass children
really
drawings.
Shitty.
I have to see that now.
And he can't. He also writes a lot less than Arthur does.
Well, that's another thing because he writes a letter and he's like, literally, I don't know how to articulate words, and I'm like, I'm John Martian. I'm feeling hurt. Please come back. I love you. And Abigail's like, wow, you have such a way with words. And I was just like, girl, you need to do better. Like, I don't know. Anyway.
Stop saying sorry for these assholes.
Also, she couldn't read, although John...
She's kind of learning, right?
She's learning, though, because Jack was teaching her, because Jack's a...
Oh, and they had Hosea teach Jack.
A child knows how... A young boy.
They treated him. I'm happy for what they did for Jack. Like, they tried. The whole gang, I feel like, really kind of came together around Jack.
Yeah. And I feel like I can kind of understand. Like,
I mean, I get it. It was that time,
and not a woman. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think one thing
it's their brains.
I do think about, and I think about Red Dead Redemption 1, where it's like, hey, you can't. There is no prostitution, and like they talk about Abigail being a sex worker.
Yeah.
And then... That
was like Dutch's leverage over John, was like, we all had to turn with her, like, you think you're so special.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then I think about how Red Dead Redemption 2 is, like, strangely puritanical in a certain way, where it's like, hey, and like, I know that he is burnt out by, like, other, like, he had a relationship with women that did not work out well. Yeah. But also, like, there is, like, oh, if you want to have, like, any kind of, like, physical contact, which I'm like, okay, I don't feel great about having, like, you could just go kill prostitutes in GTA 5. Or, like, go get a hand job. Like, that is not what I want from like, a video game.
Right.
But also, it's like, do you want to hire someone to, like, like, wipe down your body when you're in the bathtub? Like, I don't know who that was for.
That was really funny, though. Because one thing I have to say about the baths is, like, did you guys get the deluxe bath in like every location possible?
I did it once.
Because there's a really funny thing where, depending on where you are, you get a different girl. And so, like, in Valentine is this really sweet little lady, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I went to the Van Horn Trading Post and got a bath, and the lady comes in and she's like, you want a bath? It's she's like this really rough-looking lady, and she comes in and she's just like, I'm gonna bathe.
Oh my god.
And he still does the, like, so you must have a fella. Like, she still does the dialogue. On her too, which is really funny.
It does. I do kind of like how she's like a little bit like. I feel like he says something and she's like, "Oh yeah," like she's like just totally checked out from the conversation, and I do enjoy that. I guess I'm like, I wonder how you could do sexuality in a game that would make sense. I don't
know.
And part of me also was just like the photography mission with the wildlife photography. I'm like, you two should date. You two have so much chemistry.
I honestly thought he was in love with Arthur.
Yeah. Oh, and also
he saved his life several times.
Yeah,
like, wouldn't you be in love with your?
Let's go on a romantic stroll through the crocodiles.
Yeah.
You row. I'll take pictures. And then he like sends you a picture, and then he takes a picture of you, and like,
Yeah, totally. Like, I do feel like there is like a little bit of like an obsession there, but I'm like, I kind of was like trying to read it. It's like, you guys seem like you get along really well. Arthur doesn't really have this relationship with anyone else, and like at least you have some skills.
I don't know if it's ever been done right, because the opposite of this would be like a BioWare game, which you just throw gifts and kindness at someone until they're like, let's fuck, which is completely not the way to go about it either.
I'm thinking about like about David Cage games where it's like, move with the right stick to fuck.
And so, I just wanted to add another thing to your point too. I think it's interesting too that, like, so as an example, I did not know that Susan Grimshaw was Dutch's like first love.
Really?
Yeah, that's like I read that in the wiki later. I don't know if that's ever mentioned in the game, but apparently they were just kind of like, it didn't.
I wonder
work
if it's in a letter.
They were bonded, I guess, and so she was willing to like ride or die for him, even though they weren't romantically together anymore. And so then he went through like 80 women, ending on Molly, obviously. But yeah, Susan stuck around, but she was originally Dutch's like girlfriend, basically, and that was sort of her end.
Well, and I feel like one thing about her that I feel like is like her defining character trait in terms of the group was like Micah being like, oh, you're old. Like, that's what you are. You're just old. Like, and that's kind of the only thing they all harp on her about. And I'm like, is this really? She seems like she's the one who's keeping everything like running, even though she may not be a great person. So do we really have to keep doing this?
She reminded me of do you remember the switchboard lady from Atlantis?
Yes.
Lost Empire? She reminded me of her.
Yes.
And not in personality, I guess.
Commander.
One thing, I don't know if you guys have this random event. It's like you go from, it's right next to the camp in the bayou, and you go to a house that's kind of next door, and you see a guy who's like, come on in, have some food with me.
Oh, no, this was so bad.
Oh,
I didn't get this one. Please tell me.
And then you get knocked out, and then the guy is like making some like, oh, you're nice, we're gonna have a good time, whatever, and then it just cuts to black, and then you wake up in the middle of like the bayou, and he's like, and then you hear Arthur say like, oh my lord, I can't believe it. And then you go back. So I was like, is this like implied like a rape?
What?
Is this like,
I think it was.
Yeah, and so then you go back there and the guy's like, get the fuck out of here, blah, blah, blah. And then I killed him. And I went in there and I looked at his house and it's like, oh, he's got like shackles on the bed. Like right next to there. And I'm like, okay, definitely like there's some like implied rape here. And then you go back to camp and Micah's like, I heard about you in the camp in the bayou at that cabin. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like this is how you're going to treat this moment?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
What?
And it just doesn't, I feel like that probably warranted a little bit more than just like a throwaway Micah line being like, hey, like, you know, this is like a serious thing that just happened and it never addressed. At least anything that I found.
Well, I wonder, it's interesting you mentioned that. I wonder if that house is the same location that I encountered that woman who was being assaulted. Because she was also tied to the bed in shackles.
Was it in the bayou?
This was in the bayou. And it was nighttime, it was a random event. This gentleman like runs out at me and he's like, please help me, help me.
I got that one separately.
Okay. So it's not the same house then?
I do not believe so. Because it was kind of like looking onto the lake, the house that you were at.
Yeah, you're right. So this one was in the bayou and it wasn't, it was quite a bit away from the camp. It was in like
Blue Water Marsh, probably.
Yeah. It was outside of Saint Denis.
Yes,
like, relatively outside of Saint Denis.
I do believe they're two different things.
Okay.
Based on but I just felt like really like, I'm like, are we really going to do like, this game's not equipped to handle
that's
like a rape
though.
scene. Like,
I didn't I didn't run into that at all.
Yeah. It just seemed like if we're going to handle sexuality as a weapon in this game, like, which it seems like that's how it kind of treats sexuality. It seems like everyone that Arthur gets with, it's like, hey, you were being used, or like, hey, women are not to be trusted.
Well,
which you can do that story, but it's just not done well.
There's I also had a random encounter where this is another Night Folk story.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Where the woman tricks.
Right.
Yes.
You hear this, cry for help. There's women sobbing, and there's a torch next to her.
Oh, I felt so hard for this.
And she's like in a white nightgown, hunched over, crying into her hands on her knees, and you can't see her, but you can just see that she's like hunched over crying, and you're like, what's wrong? So you approach her. And, like, the moment that you do, she gets up and runs. And then...
Doesn't she, like, try to stab you? I thought, like, she comes at you with a knife. Maybe I got too close.
She didn't try to stab me, but she ran off. And then I turned around and it was like, oh, shit.
And there was Night Folk there. Yeah. And then I shot both of them and then homed on his ass. Because it's a guy, actually, dressed in a nightgown.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was it. So that's the other thing. It was like women are dangerous.
Women are dangerous and also stupid.
Right. I don't know if that instance in particular was more like the developers, saying, "Oh, well, you figure it's a damsel in distress, so you're going to go."
It's like very one note.
And I'm down for them to do that like hoodwink thing, but I just at least want the women who are getting like. We're pulling it over to be like a little more like conniving, because it seems like if they're pulling this shit and they're all part of this gang, they should kind of know what's going on.
Well, that's the reason why I like that one lady for the bounty or whatever, who was
the one who's on the date and then like you have to bring her in.
Oh, right.
And then she's trying to hit on Arthur the whole time.
Right. I liked her because she was like, she knew what she was doing, and she was like, that was just her character, as short as it was. Anyway.
So, I definitely want to spend some more time talking about strangers, but do you guys want to take a quick break?
Fine with me?
Sure.
All right. Alright, so back from our break. I know we've already kind of started getting into the meat of Red Dead again. When we left off, the last thing we were talking about was strangers, right? There were a lot of them. Not stranger danger, but just people in that world. Boy.
But were they stranger danger?
Strangers, who are they and what did they do?
Let's find out.
Know. But I know that, so I would say that in comparison to Red Dead 1, which felt very sparse, Red Dead 2 was very intense in the amount of people and stuff and things to look at and places to go. And I just feel like the amount of, even just from, there's a guy, like, for example, did you guys have the guy in Valentine that was like a war veteran who wanted to be your friend?
Yes.
I gave him a hug. He was my buddy.
And then he kind of
followed me through the entire, even to the end. Did you guys get to the very end where, like...
Is he still around?
Yes.
I haven't seen him in Valentine for a long time.
So when you have, so I guess I'll just kind of go into it. So you make friends with this war veteran.
Yeah.
And, like, he kind of follows you throughout the game. Like, I think he's there when you're in Rhodes, and...
I think there's multiple veterans.
Yeah,
maybe there's
multiple
veterans.
Ones,
maybe it is. Either way, I returned to Valentine later in the game. Like, I feel like I've seen him more than once throughout the game. Anyway, returned to it after I have tuberculosis. And the veteran is like, hey, friend, pal, like, I haven't seen you in a long time. Oh, you don't look too good. And Arthur's like, yeah, this is what I got. And then he's like, oh, I'm not even a veteran.
Oh my god, really?
What?
Is this the like Union soldier, like the blue suit?
In the blue suit. He's like, oh man, I feel so bad for you. I'm not even a real veteran. I just am a poor person or whatever.
Wow.
And like I've been lying to you this entire time. But like you've been such a great friend to me and I really appreciate it, man.
That's weird.
And I was like, okay, but your arm is missing, so what happened there? I can't remember if he said, like, oh, I lost it in an accident, or what, but he's said implicitly...
I chopped it off! The money!
Totally committed to that not veteran role. So I don't know what his story was. Maybe he did, and I just, like, totally glossed over it, because I was like, the fuck, dude? You're not a veteran? And you've been, like, telling people this?
I couldn't quite figure out why.
Stolen valor.
Yeah, if the Civil War ended in like 1865 and it's now 1899 and we still have a man in a Union suit, I was like, you're really holding on to this one, aren't you?
And in Lemoyne, they have the guys like in the Confederate outfit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Isn't there like a Confederate outpost somewhere where the guy's like, don't you come up in here, Union? And I'm like, what year is it?
I did kill that guy. And I was like, maybe there is.
I think I went in and killed everyone and I was like, oh, this fort is mine now. Like,
this is Fort Arthur.
Fort Arthur.
Did you guys have the Union hat or whatever? And like the Union, like the Civil
War I didn't.
Knife.
No.
The like knife gun or like an actual
it's just
knife?
a knife. It's like a trench knife kind of thing.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
It's in that. It's in that fort. You like crawl down underneath it, and there's.
I totally missed
them
that.
alone.
I totally missed that.
I was just like, go ahead and keep reenacting that Civil War or whatever.
Speaking of veterans, so did you guys do the? You probably weren't there yet, but the mission where there's the veteran who lives on the lake with Buell.
Yeah, fishing, right?
So, yeah, well, like you meet him and he's like has a fake leg, and then like his horse
runs away with it.
Buell runs off, and you like have to bring the horse back, and then you like go fishing with him, you go hunting with him, he's your buddy, and then he gets like eventually gets gored by a bull or gets gored by a bull.
That far.
Yeah, so he like you're like going on like hunting missions with him, and then he eventually gets like gored, and he's like, take Buell with you. He knocked me off, but he's my old friend. Like, he's talking about how much he loves his horse.
Oh
yeah, he really likes his horse, even though he's a dick.
So you get, like, I'm like, okay, I'll take Buell. I already have all the horses, but I'll let one go. And I get on Buell, and the first thing he does is kicks you off and runs away. And I was just like, this tracks. It was like one of my top moments in the game, because I just like started laughing, because I was like, man, this horse fucking sucks. But I'm going to keep this horse because I feel so bad, because he's my buddy. And then you get on the horse, like, all right, Buell, let's go. Like, he even like comments on the horse's name, and I was like, this is pretty funny and touching.
Yeah.
Even though you're a fucking dick, Buell.
That's so funny.
Was the slave driver a stranger mission? I was trying to remember like what the
yes.
I don't know if I remember.
Our slave catcher,
one.
I guess, was the proper term.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Tell me about this.
It's in Lemoyne.
Yeah, so you find the guy, right, and he wants you to go to his old house he's been run out of to, like, gather his last belongings in this world, right? And it was, like, something like
It's like his pocket watch, his ledger.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. Okay, anyway,
and then
continue.
through the process of going to the house, getting the stuff,
You find out all this stuff.
You find the basement where he was catching slaves.
Mm-hmm.
And then
yeah,
Arthur,
that was fucking
bro of all bros, comes back and is like, fuck you, slavery is shitty, Civil War was dumb, and I'm gonna, like, kick you in the face and throw your book in the fire. And I was like, heck yeah.
And I think it gives you an option there to, like, it's like, do you want to do something or just let him, like, cry? And, like, I know that I was like, you know what, you're kind of a dickhead, and I shot him, and then he fell into the fire, and his body was on fire. I'm just like, oh no.
Whoops!
I'm like, well, you're like a monster, but I didn't mean to set you on fire.
Yeah.
So.
That's funny.
Sorry.
Sidetrack a little bit. Did you all ever run into KKK?
Yeah.
I love that they portray the KKK as, like, horrifically inept. Yeah.
Every time, one of them catches fire. Every time.
So
did you see the one where they were putting up the cross to burn and it fell and crushed the two of them?
Yes.
And then the guy just went like, "Don't whatever," and he walks away. Like,
well, it's funny because I saw that happen, and then the guy is like just standing there with his lantern, and I was like, "Shoot the lantern!" And the whole thing lit on fire. So all three of them just burned in a fire.
Perfect.
And I was like, "Oh, awesome."
So I wish I'd played more of the epilogue because there's in the first Red Dead, in the first like shop you go into, the guy's like says something lines like, "We have no Jewish made good or no Jew made goods here."
Yes, I remember that. That was really weird.
And so I was like, "Oh, you're gonna be racist, but like we're not gonna talk about how fucking stupid this is."
Right.
And I'm glad that in Red Dead 2, it's like, "Oh, we're gonna have the KKK to be like in there, but we're gonna make them look like fucking idiots." And I'm like, there needs to be some kind of wink and a nod, be like, "Hey, this is bad, and we're not gonna like let you play like the racist simulator."
Yeah.
And I also think there's that whole like PewDiePie thing with the YouTuber who was like going and finding like suffragettes and then like feeding it's like dumb feminists feeding them to like alligators or something like that.
Oh really?
Yeah, and then his channel got banned, and then PewDiePie stepped in and was like, "No, it's whatever, free speech," and they got his channel unbanned from YouTube.
PewDiePie is just a fucking thing.
It was bad.
So I guess what I'm like, I wish that like you go to the native reservation and you can't kill people there, which I'm like, cool. It just turns your guns off.
I was like, oh, awesome.
Yeah,
because I'm like, you can't just play this like, oh, I'm gonna kill the natives and do this whole thing. So I wish that was also taken with suffragettes. So I know it's a little off track, but I was just thinking about that where I'm like, hey, if we're gonna have racists in the game, make sure they're like fucking idiots. I killed that guy who's talking about the eugenics as well in the middle of St. Denis.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, so I just murdered that fool.
Well, it was earned, we'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interest. I was interested to see the game actually go and be like, Arthur Morgan is anti-slavery, and it was like interesting because you haven't made a decision about literally any fucking other thing.
Anti-slavery, but doesn't vote.
It was funny that I love the way that they had him approached women's voting, and like the concept of that was as being like, why would anybody vote? I don't know. If y'all want to vote, I guess you should, because I don't really care, because I don't really read. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like. Okay.
That's an interesting take there.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was just like, why couldn't he just at least be like,
for? I don't know. Government's just out to get your...
Does it even let you, like, antagonize them? Like, you don't really, like... I
don't think you can, I'm pretty sure.
It's literally...
You just kind of intrude on the conversation.
I think it's the first camp, and it's kind of when you're towards the end of the first chapter, or second chapter, and you just, like, stumble upon Karen and I think...
It's Mary Beth, I'm pretty
Mary
sure.
Beth, yeah. And they're just talking about it because that's the whole suffrage movement. And that's, like, precursor to the suffrage movement, or suffrage mission on Rhodes. And they're just, like, talking about voting and, like, how women haven't voted or whatever, don't have the right to vote or whatever. And they were like, you know, well, if you could vote, like, who would you vote for? Would you vote Arthur? And he's just, like, totally... I
ain't gone there to do that.
Yeah, it was just very, like, he has the power to vote, but he's just like, I don't give a fuck. And, like, doesn't, like, appreciate the power. And I feel like, maybe I get it in that day, people weren't really voting, but, like, come on, game designers, like, can you just, like, push a little bit there? Or maybe they were taking a no politics in our game, which is stupid because their game does participate in politics, whether they want to or not. I
just wish they had, like, if they're gonna... There already are politics, like you're saying, and it's like, hey, like, you're letting politicians run this thing, and, like, I think that is kind of lampshaded a little bit later in the game.
Yeah.
But, like, I kind of wish that it was a little more explicit, or at least, like, had some kind of major payoff. I don't know. Did you guys find the brothers, who were, like, fucking idiots in
and they were fighting over the girl, and they kept wanting you to shoot them?
Yes.
Loved it.
I did think that mission was pretty fun.
Did you? So there's a second. You did more than just the shooting.
I did the whole quest line.
Yeah.
Okay. I only shot the bottles off of their heads. So then I know that eventually they're in a bar, right? They go. Isn't the next mission after that the bar?
There's like somebody like punch them, I think.
Because you had to like beat them up at one point.
Oh.
Because they were like, I can take a punch, hit me in the stomach, hit me in the face.
And then they were like, oh, I'm gonna go off this like waterfall, like.
Oh, Jesus.
That's the next thing where it's like, oh, we're gonna go off a waterfall.
So does one of them die, and or who gets the girl? Because that's why they're doing it.
So the end of it is like, oh, they're gonna go off a waterfall, and then they land, and then they're like, oh my god, we were so stupid, we love each other, and then they're like, fuck the lady, and they like walk away, and that's the end of that.
Wait,
mission.
so they're like canonically gay?
No, they're brothers. So they're like,
they're like, we love each other platonically as brothers.
Yeah, they're like, we love each other, we're brothers, let's not let this heartbeat come between us again, which isn't great, but it's just very dumb.
Okay, sure, yeah, whatever.
Alright, just toss the lady you were wooing away.
Oh my lord.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some like fun Stranger missions, because I'm like,
I really liked the photographer.
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah, that was a really nice one.
His missions were always really nice.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just because like he was there taking photographs of like beautiful wildlife, or if it was just like his character.
Yeah.
I really liked him as a person.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely think they had chemistry, like I was saying.
Yeah.
I wish they would have dated, and I wish we could have an Arthur dating simulator.
I kind of want that too.
Did you guys do the time traveler mission?
The
the cave markings or the markings.
Oh
mission?
yes.
I thought that one was like
like
we're gonna talk about weird stuff in the game, and I think that's one of my favorite things
that was
about
really weird.
Rockstar games.
I don't think so.
It was like a whole puzzle.
Tell me about this.
Yeah.
So there's like you have to find like markings in the world. There's 10 of them, and we walk into this guy. You go to this cabin, you find this guy, and he's like kind of talking in like 1920s slang. And he's like, "Hey, chum, let's talk about that." Like he has that whole kind of like stereotypical thing, and then Arthur's like, I don't understand what you're saying. Your slang doesn't make any sense to me. And he's like, go find these cave markings for me. Mm-hmm. And then you go find them, come back, and then he's like, you find this weird mural, and like the cave markings are all like, oh, here's like a nuclear bomb, here's like DNA strands, here's like I think there's like a New York City with like a blimp over it or something like that.
What?
Yeah, and then you go back, and then you go into the cabin. There's this mural of like a guy, the same guy, because he has a port wine stain on his face, like the birthmark.
Right.
And then it's just him like going through portals, like on a bunch of paper.
What?
And it's like, oh, he's in Egypt. Oh, he's in all these places. And then this woman comes in, and he's like, oh, I'm looking for this person. And it's like, oh, do you mean like I'm looking for your husband? And it's like, no, you mean like the baby? And it's a baby with the port wine stain on the baby's face.
Wow.
Yeah, they went full Bioshock Infinite on that one.
Wow,
that was all I could
interesting.
think of. Was that.
So
yeah,
I'm like, that was kind of like a fun, like I like it when Rockstar games are weird, because I'm like, okay, if we're not gonna like be political or like have a message to it, at least let's get fucking strange.
So the only strange thing that I encountered was that shackle or that desert or ghost town where like a plague ravaged this little itty bitty blip on the map town, and like it was implied zombies, but then there were no zombies.
Yeah, there's like a Walking Dead Easter egg there.
It's like a weird. It's a really weird thing.
Yeah,
because I thought it was just like a plague.
It was a plague, and then there's kind of a thing that hints that it was a zombie, which I don't know if that was supposed to be a Walking Dead thing or that was supposed to be a Undead Nightmare.
Okay, got that makes sense.
Yeah, because there's the fence in Saint Denis, who I guess they kind of imply as being kind of an antiquities guy.
Yes.
He has the mask.
Oh, does he?
You remember from Undead Nightmare? He has that on a shelf.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that was
that was the only like strange thing that I had found in this world.
Did you do the serial killer mission?
So I found the first clue because I was like, what is this tree? And why is there a corpse hanging here?
Yeah.
And then it was just like, and like the corpse wasn't just like a guy hanging there. It was like a guy hanging there, and like his chest cavity was open like a butterfly, and it was like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Kind of like Hannibal, the modern show.
They really got fucked up, those bodies.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, so no, I never went out and found who done it, and I never really did any of the other like collectible quests, like the dinosaur bones or the cards or anything like that. I tried to collect as many cards as I possibly could, but like, there's only so much I can do.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Did you guys understand in the cards, like, you could just buy cigarette packs, and then, like, it would give, sometimes the premium cigarettes would sometimes give you a random, like, card?
Oh, would it? Because I was hunting them based on, like, location. Like, I started using the wiki to
Oh my god.
I'm not 100% sure you can find them all, like, via location, because I didn't get into that far, but I was like, I got the upgraded satchel, which can hold 99 of everything.
Yeah.
And then so I had unlimited premium cigarettes. Like, I had all of them, and I was like, I guess and you can't sell them, so you have to just smoke them. And then to buy more.
That's really what I
was. And then he has like a...
He smoked 99
cigarettes if you just smoke... Day. I wanted to know this. I know, obviously, if your core heart runs out, you die. And if your Deadeye core runs out, like, you're just... Really, you can't aim?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if your stamina core runs out? Do you just die?
I don't believe that you die, if I remember correctly.
It hurts you, so it then starts to tick into your health.
Into your health?
If you're running... you're just like, slow down, but if you're swimming, you kind of start to drown.
Right. Well, so I figured that, but I was like,
I don't know why
I
said kind of, you just start to drown.
Right, you just like, woo.
Yeah.
I was thinking back to that thing I shared with you guys. I'm like, so when I was in the lake, and I was like, I'm going to go on the lake, it's going to be super fun, I'm going to steal a boat, I'm going to go to Blackwater.
Yeah, you were doing what I was trying to do. I tried to get into Blackwater so many times, because I was like, I'm gonna fucking get through Blackwater and like go into like the other area where maybe I'm not wanted.
Yes.
And like, nope, not by water, not by land, not by air. But anyway,
So I'm in the boat and I'm like going across, and then my partner was like, I think your boat's sinking. And I'm like, why would it be sinking? That's ridiculous. And so I'm like,
because you had a steamboat.
Yeah, I had a steamboat, and everything was fine. And so I'm like going towards Blackwater, and then I realized that like, oh, this boat's taking on water. I got a video recording that I guess we'll post that. I think
we have to. It's really funny.
And then the boat just starts to go underwater and just completely sinks. And you see Arthur kind of just like, oh no. And then like he starts trying to swim, and I feel like there's maybe some kind of trigger that makes it so that your everything depletes immediately.
Yeah.
So then Arthur is just like kind of swimming a little bit. He's like, oh no, and this like goes underwater and drowns.
Yeah.
And it's just very funny to watch him die.
Yeah. I encountered the same thing. Like, I went by canoe, by regular boat, by steamboat, into Blackwater, like, to go down the little stream, and your boat just instantly just collapses. Like, and you're just like, what? Yeah. And normally, either in the canoe or the regular boat, you have been rowing, so your stamina's already really low to begin with.
Yeah.
And then you're sinking, like, that's it.
Yep.
On the steamboat, it just instantly depletes it. And then I tried to go into Blackwater through land, evaded all the lawmen, and the moment that you cross the stream from Blackwater into, like, the next county, some mysterious sniper guy just shoots you like 2 times.
They were hell bent of keeping
and you just die. Like, because there was no one on the map, there was no red dot, there was no one, I wasn't being chased, and I just like fucking died. And I was like, okay, well, I guess you really can't go into Blackmarsh.
So, part of
Blackwater.
I got that rare horse, the Arabian horse.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I realized that there's a challenge in the game, like the second to last, or maybe it's the 7th challenge with the horse riding thing, is like ride your horse from Saint Denis to Blackwater without touching water.
Oh.
Yeah, and so I was like, well, I'll do that after I finish the game. And then I realized, like, my horse is gonna die, and it's a super rare horse, so I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna do this, and, like, I was able to get, and I also really, you can't get all the dinosaur bones until after? Well, yeah, unless you're in, like, Armadillo and stuff like that.
Got it.
And so then I was, like, riding my horse, making it, and just like chugging like health elixirs and stuff like that, because it's like you're getting shot, and it's like once you take like a couple bullets, like, no, you're totally fucked.
Yeah.
So I did get it done and was able to get back across, but I was just like taking a health elixir every 5 minutes, and I had like 15 to 16 of them of like the level 2 ones. So it's a real motherfucker. They really come at you.
Yeah, they really didn't want you to be there.
Yeah.
That was the only time my horse ever died. The only time I had a horse death was in Blackwater, because I had accidentally gone down the wrong path into a canyon that just is a dead end, and like I had to make my horse jump off a rock, and it just died instantly, and I was like, oops.
Yes. And my thing was, I went to the point where like I triggered the challenge to go off, and like then so the challenge went off, and I immediately turned around and was like, fuck this, I'm not going any further into Blackwater, I just want to like get the challenge and go back home, because it sucks, like you're just being hunted constantly.
Yeah. Anyway, so Strangers though, I thought it was interesting about that circus troupe.
Yeah.
Not the animal one, but the one where you meet... I don't even know her name.
Right. Oh, right. So not the animal one.
Not the animals. Not Magnifico. No, it is Magnifico.
Well, Magnifico's the magician.
The magician. The little magician.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, you meet that woman in Van Horn.
Well, and it starts off that you're fighting a person who has, like, microcephaly, right?
Yes.
That's the whole thing
Yep.
that you...
Yep. I was like, wow, they really went here.
They sure did.
I don't know.
It's so fucked.
I felt super disgusting about that whole mission because I'm like, I know that like a freak show, quote unquote, was like a part of the times, but it really wasn't. I felt like I wasn't treated with care in any way, and we talked about that with like the little person. But like, oh, we're just gonna start with like you're like beating the shit out of this guy.
Yeah, basically.
Because he don't know better.
Yeah,
he's just a small brain brute. And whatever, it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
And then the continuation of that, it's like, well, we have to go find the magician now. And it's like this little person who is a magician, apparently.
Yeah.
Which...
It was just comic relief.
Yeah.
With people who probably should not have been the butt of the joke.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of like that punching down.
Yeah, for sure.
Was there a third one?
There's a part you can go. I didn't actually go watch the show.
Yeah,
but you can go to Saint Denis, right?
Yeah, so the Saint Denis show, it's the same one where if you go, I don't know if you did the Mary Linton mission where you are in Saint Denis with her and she offers to go to the show, like on a date. So it's the same show, same theater. But if you go, you'll have a conversation with the ticket guy where you're kind of like, oh, I'm friends with these people. And then they're like, oh, okay, we'll go ahead, go on in. And you sit through the whole show. So they sing different songs. They have the Fire Lady has a different thing. Like, they actually have different routines. You can come and sit and watch. And then they come out at the end, and the joke is, like, they don't really have their shit together, and they're just kind of a mess. And that's funny, I guess. And then they just kind of run off stage, and that was it.
Oh.
And then if you go back to the ticket guy, he gives you a cut of the tickets of that day. Because that was what they promised you, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then that was the end.
Huh.
But it was just kind of weird, because I expected it to be like, and now the show is on, and instead it was like, we're still a hot mess disaster. Like, you know what I mean? Because the way they rode into the sunset, like, we're family!
Yeah, they totally got their shit together, supposedly, by then. It was just like, oh,
no,
okay.
because what they did is they set the big guy up to kind of, like, fight another person, like, you're gonna fight him because he's a brute or whatever, and then he like straight up kills a guy, like punches him, like you know how you can like knock a guy out and then he's dead. It was like that.
But then
and then it was like okay, bye. You know what I mean? It was just really weird.
Oh no.
Yeah. Well, that's show business, everyone. Close curtain.
Yeah, I think that feels like we had talked about, like how it's like, oh, this comes from a different Rockstar. This comes from a Rockstar who made GTA 5. Like that's what I feel like, and I'm like. Maybe they haven't proven themselves to be able to make anything beyond that. So I'm like, oh, maybe Red Dead 2 is an anomaly with like the way they treat their characters with empathy. Yeah. But that's how it felt to me. I was just like, oh, I don't know about this whole thing, guys.
Yeah.
Tell me about the Wolfman.
Oh, fuck the wolf. The Wolfman scared me. Because I was out in Roanoke. I don't remember what I was doing. I was doing something. Oh, because I was trying to chase down the Marko Dragic story. And so I hadn't gotten a new quest marker for him for a while, so I was going back to check on him, and
that's the science guy, right?
Yeah. Did you guys?
I enjoyed his.
Did you find his?
Yes.
Okay. So that's when you go back, you find him, he's dead. That's why you don't have a quest marker, and you get the lantern.
That I don't know. I did the little boats in Saint Denis, and then I did his Frankenstein I'm alive robot bit, and I thought that was pretty cool, like whatever, but I did not
go back and check on him,
finish his thing.
I do want to talk more in depth about that because I feel like there's a cool hidden Easter egg, and I don't mean to spoil
no, you go ahead, it's fine,
but like, so you go back, he's dead, and then you actually find like a light bulb lamp, like a lantern that's
this was so cool. This is so cool.
So and then and I had to look this up because I was like, I had heard that you can actually find the robot in the world after that quest sign's completed.
Oh really?
And I feel bad talking about this, but I think it's really cool, is that there is a hidden Easter egg where if you use the lamp, it'll actually like turn a different color if you're getting closer to the robot.
Yeah, it turns red when you're and no matter where you are on the map,
when you turn direction,
facing him, no matter where you are in the world.
Yeah,
so you can use it to guide yourself,
and then you can find the robot. Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh. So what happens when you find the robot?
I won't tell you.
Okay.
We'll find out.
Okay, great.
So I think that's a cool thing that I didn't really put together at first as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's a fun little I got this cool lamp. I feel like I lost the lamp though after Gorma. Like I was like, where's
really?
I was like, where's my fucking lamp?
I didn't use the lamp too much.
On the lantern, you can switch between the two.
That's probably what I fucked up. I didn't get the right lamp figured out, but it's much brighter.
Yeah, so that's nice.
Yeah, I'm sure
it's better than the little dinky one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was heading up there to check on him because I hadn't gotten a quest marker in a while, and then I just heard some I heard someone howling, and I was thinking like, oh, that's weird, and I just kept going.
You didn't think it was like wolves?
Well, because it sounded like a person barking, like a human person barking, and I was like, So I just kept going, and then there's like a guy over there, and I was like, what's that? He was like a ways away, and then it became, and this was the middle of the day, and he is fully naked.
You could see the dick.
You can see the dick. It was totally animated. I think is he the only one? I think he's the only one.
I think he's the only dick you can find.
That was like, was that the one? Was that Rockstar's one? Like they got one, and that was.
I thought Uncle was going to be.
I wanted Arthur to just take his shirt off. That was it. I had to put him in the back for that. Damn it! Anyway, there was some good physics though when he was hanging upside down and using his long jaws. I was like, they spent some time on that. Anyway, my mom listens to this podcast.
Rebecca thought.
Yeah. And he had a wolf with him, and the wolf came at me, and then he ran away, and I was like, this is fucking weird.
Did you find him?
So I went to his cave, so I followed him, because I'm like, this is weird. So I followed him, and there was nothing in the cave. Like, I know he's supposed to be there with the wolves.
Oh, man, I had a
I
totally
think my game
experience.
broke.
So I ran into him twice, and one time I was like, wait, there's a
both
guy.
in Roanoke, right? By the same place where his kid. Yeah, okay.
So I saw him once, and I was like, fuck, where is he? And then the wolves came upon me, and I was like, fuck, get away from me, and I totally lost him.
Wolves are the worst.
Yeah. The second time, I just, like, slow-mode killed all those wolves and chased him down. He was in there, and then you hear him say, like, go away, like, in a weird accent, and then his wolves came at me, and I murdered them both, and I was like, and he starts just, like, sobbing uncontrollably, and I was like, I'm so sorry, I wouldn't have killed your wolves. And then he comes at you with a knife, and then that's why I, like, tied him up and, like, basically started looting everything around him. Because, like, you get a letter, kind of explain, like, what's going on.
Right.
Yeah, he's, like, talking about, like, escaping his whole life and all that. And then I tied him up because I was like, well, I want to, like, release you. It's not your fault this shit happened. Yeah. I feel bad for you for killing your wolves. They're not even good pelts. And then...
This wasn't even worth my time.
Yeah. Well, and then I turn around, and he's just gone, and I was like, no, the wolf man is still out there. Which I'm sure was like the game despawning him because he was like tied up or whatever.
Right, you're supposed to. They didn't think you would tie him up. They thought you would kill him.
Yeah, but I'm gonna choose to believe the wolf man's still out there. And he seems so sad because he killed his wolves.
I know. I think I didn't get to hit him in time, and so that when I went to the cave, it was just like a dead fire pit and nothing, like no items or anything. And I was like, okay, this is weird. I'm not ever coming back here.
Interesting.
Ever again.
I didn't notice he was naked until I tied him up, and I was like, wait. Those balls.
Really? Because from a distance, I was like, that man does not have clothes on. He was like, something about the lighting and the time of day that I saw him, he was like...
It was a very clear picture.
He was so bright, like, because he was so pale, that, like, against kind of, like, the darkness of the lake, I was like, what?
Wait a minute.
Yeah. Huh? Okay. That was an interesting way if they had to use their one.
I don't know if this really fits in here, but the legendary animal hunting, I think was kind of like all of the legendary animals really cool. We talked about it a little bit, but how much hunting did you guys do in the game?
I did a lot at the beginning, because I was like, I gotta provide for my camp, I want to get all of these pelts, I want to get the upgrade, I want to get the camp looking good, because I was like, for some reason I felt like it was a Mass Effect 2 scenario where, like, if I didn't upgrade my camp...
Oh, everybody would die.
Everyone would die, or, like, you know, like, if I didn't take care of my people...
Well, if you hadn't upgraded the cannons, then Garrus wouldn't have died. You're a monster.
Like, you know, so I was very, like, adamant about getting shit together. And then I think I read somewhere, because people were, like, stressing out about it, and someone on Twitter was like, no, don't worry about it. Yeah. Like, do your own thing. The camp can survive without you. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And I was like...
I was worried about that.
Oh, okay, well, I guess, fuck it then. I mean, like, even after that, though, I still went hunting because I wanted to get, good pelts and, like, the legendary animals for their, like, little trinkets to get, like, 10% stamina boost or whatever, you know? Yep. So I went out and did that. And then I just kind of stopped because I was like, I want to get through the rest of this game. And then I could totally just play that game and hunt all day long. I really could.
I love the hunting, but I also kind of, and I feel the same way at the cores where I'm like, to what end, though? Like, I love the idea of the hunting, especially in the online play, but I'm like, you could have cut some of this and focused on other things that were really important.
I also I didn't appreciate that, like, you spent maybe 20 minutes hunting something, shoot it, and it's a perfect pelt. The best. and it's like $5 to sell. And I was like, why?
Yeah.
Why not? So like legendary animals and like their corpses and things that be taken to the trapper, they're like $50, which is like, oh, okay, cool,
totally.
like, whatever. Mm-hmm. But like, why aren't other? Because I was at the very beginning, I was like, how do I make money? And I was like, oh, just go hunt, because why not? Like, just sell everything. And then really was fucking trivial. So anyway, I guess round 2, I don't know what to do, but like, still.
I guess, like, and to tie this back into, like, the stranger thing, I was thinking a lot about hunting that alligator. Because I was like, that alligator is significantly bigger than everything else in the game.
Yes, it is.
And I'm like, this is like a giant fucking alligator, and I should not fuck with it.
It killed me the first time, and I was like, oops.
I
like,
deserved it.
Totally. Yeah.
Well, the first legendary hunt I did was the wolf, and I was just like, I got the thing when I was next to the like hot springs or like Yellowstone like thing.
Oh,
that was beautiful by the way.
It's
that
really
area.
Cool.
I was like, oh my god, this is so pretty.
Oh, we haven't touched on how pretty this game is.
Oh, it's stunning.
It's so gorgeous.
Yeah, I love the look of this game, and I love the weather of this game.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get that a lot, I feel like.
The weather, for some reason, for me, it like always wigged out. And like, it would get really dark and rainy, and then it would be like, I would like take 2 steps to the left, and it would be like, whoosh, like, suck up all the way, it's suddenly sunny. And I was like, oh, okay. And I'd take 2 steps to the right, and it'd be like really dark and stormy again. And I was like, what's going on here? Yeah. But like, when it worked, it was wonderful.
I just have like fond memories of like going across the Heartland where it's like kind of open, and then like having a rainstorm roll in, and you're just like, oh my god, it's like, and like the sound design as well.
Yes. But
so I was like, it's like, fine, you're in legendary wolf territory. I'm like, okay, and I'm like doing little like quest thing, and like, what's gonna happen? And then this fucking wolf is like up my jump, and I'm
that's definitely one of the more harder.
Yeah, and then I'm just like shooting it like 100 times, and I'm like, please die, motherfucker. I hope it doesn't matter. Like, I was like trying to hit it in the head because I didn't know if you could get like a bad legendary pelt.
Right.
So thank God.
Can you get a bad?
No, they're
always perfect.
Yeah.
You can lose if you kill a legendary animal, skin it, and then like put the corpse on your horse, and you just like die and lose the corpse.
Yeah.
You just lose selling that to the trapper, but the trapper will then have the pelt in his in his wares.
Also, did you guys get confused by how you talk to the trapper and sell legendary corpses? Because I was like, I have
yeah, it's a little
corpse.
weird.
Yeah, it's like on my horse, but like you don't have it. Like, what the fuck? And that's not how Pearson works, really.
Right.
But it is how Pearson works, but like,
I feel like it's a vicinity thing, right? So as long as your horse is within the camp, all your shit is there available for Pearson.
But like, you have to sell it first was the thing. I didn't make the connection to where
really?
It's like, sell it to him, and then he has it in his inventory, and he can craft things, where I'm like, why can't you just take it from my inventory and make it?
That would be so much easier, because you would just be like, here it is, make me a hat, like...
Right.
So, yeah. I don't know. Those legendary animals are cool looking. I feel bad for that bison. And for that alligator, and for that every other animal in the game.
All of the animals.
The animations to skin them is brutal. And then I really, really hated when you killed a buffalo or like an elk or something, a large animal that you couldn't really carry with you. I was like, I'm just leaving this on the floor. Like, I really want to take this whole thing and just, like Charles was saying, fucking use it.
Yeah, it was very Oregon Trail. Like, you have shot 15,000 pounds of meat, you can bring back 50. Like,
yeah. I was just like, oh no.
Yeah.
Did you guys find the bear in the cabin?
Oh, the one that jumps out at you?
Yes.
Like, you open the door and it's like, bear time.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you're like, you run on this cabin, because I was like looking at all the random houses, because you can kind of see them on the map. And
I started doing that too.
Yeah, because I'm like, what's my next point of interest? And I'm like, oh, there's a cabin here, and you walk in, and just a bear is screaming at you in your face, and then like, it like just grabs you, just like stab it in the face and shoot it a bunch.
Yeah.
And then it's bad news. And then you find the other person that the bear mauled in there.
Oh no.
That was also where I found my first like cheat code, which I don't know if you guys understood how those worked.
Yeah, I thought they were only in the newspapers.
So
were they elsewhere?
Oh man, I never read.
Wait, was
I
it
read
in
the
the
newspaper
drawers?
like
yes.
once.
Oh my god, the text that was freaking me out. I thought I was gonna like have to. Sorry, I was gonna have to Pepe Sylvia this thing.
No,
because like I remember being in a house, pulling open a drawer, and there was writing on the inside of the drawer, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, because I kept seeing stuff where I'm like, what is this text? And it's like, if you go into the settings,
I think I completely missed this.
And look, as I didn't understand what it was, and I was like looking up like, what is this saying? And it's like, oh, go into the settings, go to the enter cheat code, and then type in that phrase, and then you get a cheat code, and that's how that works.
What?
Which I think is really cool. And like,
That's really cool.
And I started realizing that, like, I was like, because I would always use the train tracks to get around, and I'm like, if you go through some of the tunnels, you'll see like writing on the wall.
Yeah.
And then I was like, that's another phrase.
Oh my god!
Oh my god! I totally went through the tunnel, and I was like, which was super scary, by the way, because I was like, what's going to happen?
But
I didn't know this either, though. But like, that's amazing.
So, like, I don't know. So, as a part,
but I just wasn't observant.
Well, I mean, they were not around. I just remember opening a drawer, and the drawer said like "nice try" in it, and I was like,
yeah. Well, there's like
that's like some fourth wall shit.
I kept thinking of like the thing from like Westworld, like these violent delights or whatever.
Oh my god, I know
these violent ends or
yeah,
because it's like a very similar kind of like phrases where it's like I like rustic sayings that will make you feel uncomfortable, and I think that's a really neat way to do cheat codes. You know what I mean?
It was very unsettling.
Yeah, definitely. Did you guys find the vampire?
Oh yeah, I did. That scared the shit out of me when I found that first writing. I was like,
I don't think so. No.
Because I had heard about the vampire, and I was like, it's in Saint Denis, and it's like, you find, like, some writing on the wall, and then you find all of them, and it, like, helps you triangulate a position where it's, like, in the notebook, he'll draw, like, a little star that it's like, here's, like, the center of that, and then you go there, and there's a fucking vampire there who's, like, sucking the life out of a fucking person.
What?
Yes.
Yeah, I can't believe I missed all of this.
And then you kill it, and then it's like, you get a school knife.
You got another knife?
Yeah. Well, so I did it, and it was right in chapter 4, and I'm like, it just would never spawn for me, and I was like, what the fuck? And I had to go back in chapter 6 to, like, unlock the, like, vampire was not spawning for me. Yeah, it was really making, because you have to go there between, like, a certain time, and I'm like, come on.
There's a lot of time-controlled stuff in this, like, more than I realized, like, the ghost train.
Yeah.
That was, like, only at dusk, I think, or nighttime. I saw it. I was just, like, fucking out by Valentine.
Yeah, it's up north, isn't it? Like, it's the northern trail of Valentine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, is it just a train that runs by itself and no one's on it?
It's a literal ghost phantom train.
There's literally,
Yeah.
You can, like, phase through it if you walk into it.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know how I missed all of this paranormal shit, because that's
There's a lot of paranormal
amazing.
They went really, really ham with it.
This is stuff I like, where it's like, if you go to that, like, abandoned, like, kind of church-like thing where all the bodies are, at night, then, like, a fucking alien comes down and will, like...
I went back and told me about that, because I was in there during the day, and I was like, this looks like a cult, and is really weird, and then we were like, I think you missed a thing.
Yeah.
Like, go back at night, and then I did, and I was...
Well, and did you guys find out... How did you guys do with the treasure hunting, like, challenges? Because that was the first thing I did.
I found one treasure, and that was
all that
it.
matters.
That was it. It's the only thing.
Because I did, like, eventually, I was like, well, I need cash to buy these sweet hats, so I did all the treasure hunts.
Gold bars.
Yeah, and so, a lot of that was like, put together this, like, logic puzzle, or, like, find the random couple who's frozen up north.
Yes, I
found
that
one was cool.
That one was so cool.
Well, and I like when the game gives you the tools to, like, it's like, you can see on your mini map, like, the X's of, like, a dead body, and it's like, all right, I'm actually, like, kind of using these, like, context clues to put it together.
Yeah.
The one treasure map I was thinking of is, like, there's one that you never really use for, like, anything, and then apparently people on, like, Reddit and stuff like that have put it together. It's like, if you go to this certain mountaintop at a certain time, it, like, summons an alien to drop down. It doesn't do anything, it just kind of is there, like some other GTA 5.
Interesting.
Weird.
Yeah, but I was like, I kept wondering, like, what is this extra treasure map for? Because they usually, like, go away after you've completed it. It's not, like, a separate item. So, I thought, like, that's the weird shit I like in these games. When they don't.
Do too.
Did you guys find any, like, collectible tomahawks or anything like that? Or, like, the pirate sword?
Yeah, and I found the Viking helmet.
The Viking helmet.
Yeah,
cool.
that one was cool.
I feel like I found a knife, but I don't remember what it was.
Was there
I don't
more than
know
one
if it was
tomahawk?
special.
There's, like, 6 tomahawks.
Oh, I found, like, 2 of them, and I was like,
I'm sorry, there are 2 tomahawks, but there's, like, 6 of the hatchets or whatever.
Oh, right, and they're all, like, randomly placed, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I felt like, because that stuff, it's like, usually when you find a weapon, it, like, has a little weapon marker on the mini-map.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas these are just, like, you kind of have to know, and I'm like, I like it when the game has that kind of wink and a nod to be like, find this thing. It's like a rumor mill, which I like a lot.
Right.
Did you drink the potion?
I didn't find the potion ever.
Which potion?
I know the potion exists.
Where's the potion?
So there's a house out. It's not quite. I don't know what they call it. It's like north.
Wait, I think I know
next
what this is.
Yeah, there you go. So it's north, and it's kind of in between Snow and Roanoke. So it's at the top of the map. I don't know what that is. It Lagros? I think is the.
I think it's much higher actually.
And I'm trying to think. There's like a hut kind of out there, and I found it because I was looking for the little houses.
Oh yes, I did this.
Yeah, so
anyway.
you drink the witch's potion, and then you wake up like 20 paces away.
Yes.
Is there anything else to it, or is that like...
That was it. That was all I
That was it.
I don't think it did anything else.
I think I drank it again just to see what happened.
Oh, did you?
No. I went to go drink it and it was completely empty.
Oh, yeah.
Like, okay. But yes, I found that, and I was like, I think it was one of the first few like secret things I had found.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I was like, this is weird because it was just like this. I was like just traveling around, and I was like, this is just a little house by itself. Let's go investigate.
Yeah.
Did you guys find the meteorite?
Yes.
Like the meteor house and the meteorite next to it?
Yeah.
No.
If you came back at night, the meteors would fall. Like you could see the meteors from.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So there's a house, and we'll just leave it where there's a random house you can find.
Yep.
Where there is
somewhere.
there's just a bunch of dead bodies, like all like mangled, and then in the center there's a smoking crater.
Yeah.
That you can like go up and like pull a meteor from, and I guess that meteor, because I sold one of them. And I guess like it actually has like a hidden benefit of like, oh, it makes your body temperature stay like when you're in a cold place, it's like 10% higher.
Does it really?
Yeah, because I didn't realize that. And then you can find a separate meteorite like a little bit like close to it, and you can just see all the trees are kind of bent over, and I'd gone by it like 100 times, like when I was hunting.
Yeah.
And I like was like, wait a minute, what is that? And I walked in, and you see like a big ass like meteor in the center with another like meteorite shard.
Wow.
And apparently, there's still a third one that's unfound somewhere in the game.
Really?
Yeah.
No one's found it, or you haven't found it.
Apparently, no one has found it. I'm a fool, and I've like for fun, I like watch like YouTube videos like top 10 unfound things in video games.
Oh, I was deep in the Chiliad mystery.
Yes, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like that's like my candy. I'm like, no, I'm getting all that.
I love it too.
So like the Red Dead Redemption mysteries, like subreddit has been like, I'm like kind of like keeping an eye on it to be like, what's new out there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, did you guys find the Indian burial ground?
Yes.
Yes. Ooh.
And then like if you throw fire at it, apparently it changes the weather.
What?
If you throw a fire bottle, like, cause I saw something about it, so I did it, and I got negative, like, you get negative karma for like attacking it, but then it like causes rain to fall.
Weird.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's like you desecrated their burial ground.
That was how I found my first Dreamcatcher. Was there?
Yeah,
dude, the Dreamcatchers.
Same.
I
found a few, and I was like, what does this mean?
Yeah. The thing that was always useful for me is that if you were walking or if you were riding your horse at like a really slow trot, your controller would vibrate if you were near a point of interest or a dream catcher or something.
I didn't get that until you pointed it out. And I was
like,
man, I missed so much.
So there would be times when I would do it and then it would be like, I get off my horse and be like, where is it? Like, whipping around trying to find it.
One thing I thought was kind of cool, and this is like in the 10 minutes of the epilogue I played, but I was like, oh, I'm gonna like just go and just like go into this new place I can go to because no one's chasing after me. And I was kind of like just riding through the woods that are like right on the border of like Blackwater, like, you know, that like wooded area. There's just like there's like hanging bodies everywhere, and the like people are just like fucking tied to trees, like bodies. It reminded me of the Night Folk, but it was just like.
But did you stop to investigate?
I looked at a couple of them, but nothing happened.
So in chapter 6, when you meet the Merc Blood...
Oh, the Murphy Brood.
Murphy Brood, thank you. Those guys are as scary, if not more scary, than the Night Folk, because this one time I was writing down, after you like trigger them that they're in the world or whatever, guy hanging in the tree. And I was like, that's weird. There's a person hanging in the tree. You know, I stop my horse, go to investigate. As I do that, 2 people pop out and, like, shoot at me, but then run away. And thankfully, I, like, shot them from afar. And I was like, okay, no big deal. And I go to loot their bodies. I take, like, a few steps forward. I fall into a pit.
That happened to me as well.
Oh, no.
And then there were 2 more guys. With both, I think both had shotguns. Thankfully, I had enough Deadeye left that I could just, like, shoot them immediately.
Yeah.
One of the scariest moments in my life playing that game. Because I was like, oh, what in the world? Yeah, those guys suck.
You reminded me of the Drago, like, missions. And, like, you have to, like, it has to be, like, while it's raining. And you have to get up there before it stops raining. So I kept, like, setting up my campsite in Murphy Brew territory.
And then they come and do that to you, too.
Yeah, and they, like, pull a gun out on you while you're, like, cooking.
Yes, that happened to me once.
That's fucking terrifying.
Yes.
I hated that.
Because you feel like, oh, I'm safe. I'm in my camp. And then these dudes just come.
And they're like, you're not safe.
Just the gangs in general made me terrified of covered bridges. Because, like, every time I would come out of a covered bridge, somebody would ambush me.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
In the epilogue, did you see those like bodies all hanging around? I don't know if you went down like because
bodies where?
Well, it's like so in the part the wooded part next to Blackwater, like the kind of north of Blackwater, where it's like you know like the lake. I cannot pronounce it.
Probably not.
Next to, it's like where there's like
I feel like there was a moment though
strawberry, and then next to that there's the lake, and then you go a little farther.
Right.
west.
No. I think so because I remember John saying to Jack like, "Hey, Jack, look away, don't look."
Because I just kind of went there for funsies. I was like, oh well, I'm definitely not gonna complete these boring ass story missions. So I'm gonna go like just kind of ride around. I went to like the shop and they wouldn't sell me anything. Like the shops are not available yet. I'm like, this is bullshit. Let me buy something.
No, they're very like hell bent on that. No, I don't think I can't remember if I did or not.
It was fucking bizarre.
I feel like I did, but
I also I didn't have you don't get a gun in those like starting missions.
No.
So I actually ran.
You're supposed to be starting fresh.
Yes. So I ran into a guy with my horse. And then he started just chasing after me, shooting me. So I had to like slow my horse down, jump horses, stab him in the heart, and take his gun. And then I had a gun with 5 bullets in it. And then I ended up finding I was walking around there, and then there's like a bow. So I found a bow, and I was like, I'm living the life. It felt like some like battleground shit where it's like I have no weapons. I'm scrounging for my life.
That's funny. It's funny.
Oh, so much for turning over a new leaf, right?
And I had full good okay.
You're a full good cowboy, but you're stabbing people in the horse.
Well, you know.
So just to touch back on that like morality meter.
Yeah.
So I did some bad things in the game.
We all did some bad things.
I was trying to get that challenge, like the thief challenge or whatever. So I was like robbing folks. Like there's a point where it's like get $50 worth of money from robbing people, or sell 6 horses. So my like meter had gone to the red a little bit, and I was like, I'm gonna get this back. And my partner's brother had beaten the game. He was talking. He was like, you know what you need to do? Go in the middle of town and say greet everybody. And so that's what I did. And I was like, so you can murder people, you can steal their shit, but if you just go into town and are really nice to people, your meter just starts going up really quickly. Yeah, because it's like, hi partner, hi, and then it's just like, you got karma, you got good karma. And I'm just like, this system's broken. And like, looting a corpse that's like dead already when they don't need their shit, it's like negative karma. But it's like going to the house and stealing their shit, whatever, it's fine. No one cares.
Weird.
Like, yeah, this game really did have a lot of morality issues, which I struggled with that I had mentioned previously too. But it was just, just things.
Why couldn't you lasso them and take them to prison?
Why not? They were the fucking bad guys. I was a sheriff. Like, let me lasso the bad guys and not have it be a thing. Or like, I found a dead body. And I looted it, and it was like, ooh, negative. Well, I was like, why?
And go back to that Murphy Brew thing where it's like you shoot down the people who are hanging. It's like, oh, you can get a letter that kind of explains a little bit about this. But it's like, or like the night folk body is hanging. It's like, well, why are you penalizing me for trying to understand more about the situation?
I thought that was frustrating too.
So it's just, I mean, is it a huge thing in the grand scheme of things? No, not really. It's just a little. As much as Rockstar has been toting, like, oh, this is a game that's amazing, and we've done all these things to it, it's just a little irksome that these rules don't apply to everyone.
Did Red Dead 1 have a morality system like that? I cannot remember.
It did.
Okay, gotcha.
It was more cut and dry. Like, it was like, if you murder people, you're bad, but if you, I don't know, you had the choice to, like, help people in different, like, doing stranger missions would give you a little bit of change.
And I know we're running along on the stranger thing, but one last thing I wanted to talk about was like when you're in Valentine and then you see the lady who's like, my horse is dead, please take me back to Emerald Ranch. You guys do this?
Yes.
And then she kind of tells a little story about like, oh, the ladies, the daughter is really strange.
Yes.
How much time did you guys spend there?
So I spent some time looking around the saloon since she was saying that it looked like something had happened there. Yeah. So I like poked around.
Did you find the headstone?
No.
There's a headstone there of like a guy and it's like, I was like killed in an accident, and then you like if you're in the saloon, you can see like the bullet shots and everything.
And there's like blood on the floor.
Yeah, and I was doing a little bit of research where it's like, oh, the daughter comes to the window every like at noon and midnight or something like that.
She does. It is true.
And then there's more story if you find like up near the Trapper up north, like near Strawberry. There's like a letter you can find that's like. It's posted to her but it never got delivered, talking about like, I'm sorry your like husband was lost in that accident, like, and also speaking directly to her father, being like, hey, if you're like intercepting these letters, you need to give them to her, it's not okay.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm like, this
weird.
That's so weird because she's so small too. It's just like a random ass encounter you find.
Well, I love those small details are like, oh, like this is subtle.
Yeah,
I wish
that's amazing.
Yeah, and I'm like, these are the kind of stories I wish that we could tell in this, or that were more highlighted in this world versus like the more bombastic shit that happens in that game.
Yeah, because there's a lot of good. Like, did you guys run into and this was probably my favorite of the strangers, was the blind man on the side of the road.
Yes.
The way from who would, like, if you gave him money, he would kind of tell you your fortune.
Yeah.
And usually whatever it was had something to do with what was going on, and like that's the kind of shit that I'm here for. Because I really like the strange man in Red Dead 1, which was always kind of commenting on what you were doing and what was going on, and was sort of questioning your choices. And so having kind of just this guy that would appear periodically and say something to you and then be like, I don't have anything else right now. Like, I don't know, I'm like...
Have you heard about the painting?
No! What?
I think this will be... Have you heard about this?
Is it like a Dorian Gray situation?
So, this is like a hard thing to find, so I'm going to talk to you about it.
Okay.
There is a painting that you can find in the epilogue, which I have not seen, but I've just
done
a little research.
I definitely haven't found this.
There's a painting, it's like an oil painting, and the closer you get to 100% completion, the more complete it becomes, and it's the man from the first game.
Whoa, the strange man?
Yeah, and
my god.
There's a mirror next to it, and if you look into the mirror in first-person mode, you can see the strange man behind you, and then if you turn around, he's no longer there, but it's only if you get like 100% completion of the game, and then he's like, the guy is in the mirror.
So it has
I
to
have
be
like
John.
goosebumps. That's weird.
Yeah. So it's like a very... I thought that was super cool, but I'm like, I would never find that. So,
yeah, I would never either.
Because I kept looking, because I'd heard about this early on, and I was like, I need to find this painting, because I want to like check in on it, because it's like, it just gets closer and closer to being like that picture of the guy. You can only see like the rough outline of a person, or some colors or something.
Weird.
Yeah.
I know that you get an extra cutscene if you hit 100% completion, but I don't...
Really?
So
I wonder what that is.
I could spoil it. I don't know if you guys want to.
No, you can,
give it to me.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if you 100% the game, you get a cutscene of John visiting Arthur's grave, and he leaves the journal there, and he says like, "I think we're done now, partner. Like we did it," kind of a thing.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a final, like, here you go.
That's interesting because I totally watched a YouTube video of like all the endings, and that was not.
It's only, I think it's only if you get 100%.
100%, right? Which is probably a lot of people have not done that.
No, they were very forgiving with 100%. Like you only have to find one point of interest. There's like 46 of them or something.
Yeah, I'm at like 75%, and I've not even done the epilogue yet, so I'm getting pretty close. But I did do a lot of like find all the dream catchers and all that shit. Yeah. So I'm like, it doesn't seem that challenging. The compendium seems hard, actually. The challenges seem difficult.
The compendium, I think, is really hard because you have to find all those little ass fucking birds and the frogs.
Yeah, you play the game as a bird watcher.
I'm also a little worried I fucked myself because apparently I was like in a hurry to get it done, but when you're in Guarma, which let's just say here, I'm waiting to say this, that does not seem like it belongs in the game. I don't think Guarma. I think Guarma. To me,
it was like the Mexico. Like we're just gonna kind of have this weird ancillary thing, and then
it just felt so extra that I'm like, why is this in here? Because like you are there, it's like we have a little adventure in the jungle. Bye.
Yeah.
But apparently in Guarma, there's like certain animals you can only find in Guarma.
Oh, really?
And if you do not get them, then it's impossible to complete the compendium.
Or I mean, I got the green and red macaw or whatever.
Yeah, those are I got like the green, red, and blue macaw, and I think
you just wander on the island aimlessly looking at birds.
So I was trying to do that because I'd heard this, and then it's like, oh, if you go, you like the only way to get up north, like where you land on the island, is to kind of go through town. And I just kept dying, and I was like, well, because I know there's a shark there as well. If you like, there's a shark that was randomly.
Oh, there is.
It's like an Easter egg. It's just this.
Damn, God, I missed. There's so many things.
Is the shark in the compendium?
I don't think so. It's just like a random. It's like
it's just a
random event.
Yeah, it's like a dead shark on the side of the thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other funny thing I noticed was like the hats you can get. Like I don't know if you guys like looked at any of the scarecrows, but if you go up to them, you can actually take their hat and wear it, and it gets added to your permanent inventory.
Really?
Or there's like I was killing the Mounties in the game, and you can take their hat, and that gets added to your permanent inventory. So it's like random people who you kill. You can just take, usually it's like, you can't keep this hat. There are certain hats that if you kill people, you can keep them and add them to your permanent inventory.
Oh my god.
And it's like certain missions where it's like, you can just have this hat forever.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of like,
I love how
weird stuff.
In depth it is, yeah.
Yeah. That's the best part.
I think I feel like this game would be a little better if there was less story and just more of that exploration of the world. I
started thinking about it, like, that's what Red Dead Online is. Like, 'cause I was like, what if this game was just, like, you playing, like, a random person? Wouldn't that be better? And I'm like, okay, I hope we're getting kind of the best of both worlds, where it's like Red Dead Online has story, but you can make your own character, whereas Arthur...
And then you just get murdered all the time. If I could live in a world where I could just be, like, an NPC and not have people murder me all the time, I would be like, dink, done.
Yeah. I think that they're, like, because you can't even, I know in GTA 5 you can go, like, passive, where it's like you can't be hunted, but that doesn't seem possible in...
You can parlay, so if somebody kills you a bunch of times, you can parlay with them so they can't kill you for,
but you have
5
to
minutes.
kill, like, a bunch in a row, right?
Oh, yeah. I was killed, I think, 4 times before they offered me parlay with this one guy, and I was just like, I'm done.
See, I would much rather have the passive mode where it's like, well, I can't shoot you, but you can no longer shoot me, which is, like, fine.
What I missed, too, is remember Red Dead 1 had passive map, like, passive only, so the whole map, everybody was passive. Like, it was a passive lobby, basically.
I've heard great things, but I didn't really play a lot of Red Dead 1 online, but I've heard great things about, like, posse up, let's go hunt an animal or something.
It was the bomb. It was great.
That seems like a cool mode.
But it's weird because, like, having played that right before playing Red Dead 2 to kind of prep for it, that world is so sparse. Very, very, very sparse.
Yeah. So there's because that's another thing about this game is there's life everywhere.
Yeah, and so, like, I can't throw a rock without hitting, like, 2 points of interest, a literal squirrel, 7 birds, like, a stranger, you know what I mean? Like, you are always stumbling into something.
Yeah, that's what makes it feel lifelike, though, right? So
I do wonder, though, because I feel like as I, like, played more of it, I'm like, the machinery started becoming more apparent, where it's
totally.
Where it's like, oh, this is the same camp of, like, random enemies that I've seen 10 times before, or like, oh, this guy got bit by a snake again, and, like, the game...
I just went past it, and I was like...
Yeah, he was like, dude, I got bit again!
Yeah, and the game kind of, like, and you kept seeing that over and over again, which is, like, fine. I'm like, there is a limited amount of content you can make, but I like that feeling of, like, magic when you're first like, this game is, like, so nuts. I have no idea what's going on here.
And you know, my game broke down when Sean was killed, because right before I did that mission, people at the camp started saying to me, isn't that so sad what happened to Sean? And I was like, what do you mean? And then I did that mission, he was killed, and I was like, hold on. And, like, that was about when the kind of character interaction started to kind of break down, and they were, like, a little ahead of themselves. I'm not really sure what happened there.
Right. Well, and I also feel like and I understand there's only so many lines and so much logic you can make with, like, the character interactions, but it's like, when they're like, say something super serious, and then you're like, you don't say anything, and your only response is like, well, take it easy then, and you just, like, walk away after, like, they're having this, like, super heart-to-heart moment. Yeah. My dog died. Well, take it easy then, you just, like, walk away.
I know. That was,
Have at it. So I know that we could probably talk about Red Dead for 100 bajillion, million, billion, cajillion more hours, but, you know, one thing that I've really wanted to hear from you guys, just based on your experience, is, was there, like, the thing that you walk away with? So, you know, you've both played most of it, like, you played it, if you've seen the whole thing, you've played most of it except the epilogue. I'm still in chapter 4. But, you know, what do you feel like now, where you are, like, what is the thing? What is the story? What is the set piece? What is the moment that really stands out to you? I know, Olivia, you were mentioning to me a little bit about Jack.
Yeah, I think that... So I think we had different experiences with Red Dead 1. Where it's like, oh, these characters, like, I feel like they meant a lot to you, whereas for me, I was like, I remember speeding through that game, and I loved it, but also I was like, oh, I didn't really, like, care about Javier or anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that changed for me whenever you get back Jack after you, like, first find him and bring him back home.
Yeah.
And then... Like, they do that a couple times where it's like, oh, you broke Sean out, or is it Sean, the Irish guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, grab a beer, it's like a party, and you're, like, hanging out, and that's kind of fun, but it wasn't until the Javier thing where it's like, oh, we're gonna sing this song, and, like, have a moment, and I was like, okay, this is a family. Like, there is
really nice.
There's a cohesive unit here, and they, like, love each other, and they're trying to, like, make it work.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, this is, like, a really sweet moment, and Javier is kind of like the star that when playing the guitar and singing and stuff like that.
They were singing De Colores, weren't they?
Yes.
Because the people who were not Spanish only knew the part. Yeah, that was really sweet.
And Arthur's trying to, like, kind of sing along and just drink his beer and do whatever.
I love Arthur showing up, like, there was a song going, and you can, like, sing along, but it's obviously that he only knows the chorus, and so it'll be like, the ring dang and we all, like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
I looked up the actor who plays him, and I was like, oh, he hasn't really been in a lot of major roles, but he's like a stage actor.
Yeah.
Like, and he's like a Shakespearean, like
because he's like Irish, right? I think.
Yeah. And I was just like, damn, this guy has got range, and like he should be in more things. Like,
yeah.
I feel like
he was incredible.
The vast majority of like the voice acting and everything like that is like really good. And I'm like, man, these people, and I understand that from what my understanding of how Rockstar chooses, like these people is like they go for non-union actors and like non-big names because it's like just cheaper and easier to work with, which isn't great. But I hope the people that are in this game get an opportunity to do other stuff.
I know.
They fucking rule.
Yeah.
Well, like the guy that plays John, after Red Dead 1, he just went back to his regular job. He was like working at a factory. And so they, like, came and wrestled him back up for this. And this is, like, it. This is the only thing he's ever done.
Is this the same voice actor for John? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it's the same voice actor for John, and that's just his speaking voice.
Really?
That's what he sounds like. So...
Wow.
He's doing the con circuits now.
Good. Good for him.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I was actually kind of hoping maybe they would come to Phoenix Con. But we routinely pick bad people to come here, so... What else is new?
Arthur, not God. Tyler, what was your moment for the game?
Well, it's funny you mentioned the singing part because I did really enjoy when they were in the by Saint Denis, that camp at the house. I like that camaraderie as well. But I will say one thing that I really enjoyed was building that house. Not the house in the prologue, but helping the father and his two sons build their house.
Oh, right. Outside of Valentine,
It was outside of Valentine. Yeah, it's like one of the first 3 things. But I enjoyed seeing, like, their progression. Like, you go up to them, you're like, hey, hi, how are you? What's going on here? And, like, there's nothing there, and it's just a bunch of lumber, and they're like, oh, we're building a house. And you talk to them a little bit, and you walk away, and you come back later, and you see... Well, now they have, like, a frame of a house, and they're like, yeah, we ran short on some money, and whatever. It was like, okay, well, here's $100, and, like, you come back later, and their house is almost all the way built, but they're like, well, we ran out of lumber. Can you get this lumber?
Yeah.
And you do that, and I don't know, I really like that. That little moment was nice, so...
It seems like the voice acting, the direction of that is really cool. Where it's like the frame is falling down. You see the dad like freaking out. And like, what the fuck, boys? Like that's. I think it's a very like wholesome.
It is.
Scene.
It is. It's a very nice like little scene. So I think you're able to buy that house later.
Oh really?
I think. I thought I'd read somewhere like that.
I was kind of wondering how they would handle like save points and like the epilogue. Like if you could get like. In Red Dead 1, you can, like, rent the hotel rooms. I hate that. And I was like, oh, it'd be really cool if we could get some more of that, or, like, different camps, which I think the camp system is gone after Chapter 6, but I would love to see, I want to see how that system plays out.
Yeah. I wish there was more of that. I also really wish that there was more scenes with, like, the Lenny.
Oh, Lenny.
Yeah, I don't know if that's your favorite scene, Rebecca.
It's not. It's one of my. It's not what I have to share, but that was.
I think we all agree that scene's amazing. I wish there was more of that in Red Dead.
I feel like the part like that game does a lot of like creative editing, which I think is cool. Like especially like I think about the Saint Denis where you're like pouring the drinks, and it's like so I was like this is getting real lame. Where it's like you're pouring the drinks, and it's like you're gonna do like 2 of these, and it's gonna cut, and you're just gonna be pouring like 6 of them, and it's like very cinematic. And I feel like Lenny, the Lenny drinking mission has the same thing where it's like you're gonna get into a fight with the guy, and they just start all doing a line dance, which I think is really funny.
And then he's crying on the balcony, like, no one would have me.
See, that was the part where like Arthur was like sold to me, where I'm like, oh, like this guy at least has a little bit of depth and a little bit of like knowledge, and especially the part at the end where he's like, I'm an American, was like. was probably one of my favorite comedic moments in that game.
Yeah, that was really special.
I don't know if Rockstar has a great history of like actually being funny without being mean, which that game does pretty well.
Yeah.
It was a very wholesome mission scene.
It was good. There was a couple every once in a while, especially the camp stuff. Sometimes it just be really fun.
Yeah. Rebecca, what was your like moment / takeaway?
So I had this really interesting thing happen, which I don't think it was 100% scripted, but I think it just kind of happened that way. So it was the second time that you return to Thomas Downs. So this is after you beat him up. Mm-hmm. You return to the house, and he's dead now because he's died from his tuberculosis, and the son and the mother are packing up to leave. And so you have this really awkward kind of encounter where, and this is where kind of the famous Arthur, like, like, I'll keep your mother in black on your behalf thing comes up, right? Because he's still threatening them for the money for Strauss. And so they give him the money, they leave, they have this kind of, tense encounter. Arthur doesn't know he's gotten this thing, he doesn't know he's sick, this is really early, this is like maybe chapter 3. And then, he leaves and it's clear that he doesn't maybe feel great about this, and you get an automatic horse ride scene back to camp. And so when it routed me back to camp, it was like kind of evening, like early evening, and people are sitting around the fire, and that's kind of where it spat me. And it was Bill at the fire, and he's telling a story about basically how he watched his father die of dementia. And he couldn't understand. He was saying things like, he was terrified of forgetting because he watched his father forget. And so, because he couldn't really understand what this was that was happening to his father, because he was afraid of this happening to him, he started trying to find things to blame, right? And so he was saying that he was like, well, my father always mixed moonshine and whiskey. And I thought to myself, if I never did those things, then I would never, succumb to forgetting like he did. And it was just such an interesting moment because it was like I had just kind of come from that sequence. I had started to think that Arthur was sick, then I got it spoiled for me, and then, having that in the back of my head after having that really weird encounter, and coming back and having Bill be the one to be like, I'm afraid of, what could consume me that I can't control. And I thought that was a really good character moment. And I don't know, the story did what it did, obviously. I don't know if was carried through, but I think there are moments where the characters can be really vulnerable and really kind of emotionally aware.
Right.
And I think that those are really special. And so, and Bill, of all people, who's, absurdly dense, he's really fighty, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I feel like in Red Dead Redemption 1, he's, almost a one-dimensional character of, the idiot who's, fighting against you, and he's, kind of just the strong man, and it's really, I never got that scene, and I think that's really cool that Bill gets that characterization.
Yeah, it was weird, because there's a lot of stuff that I didn't get, so, someone told me that they got to dance with Mary Beth.
Oh, you didn't get to do that?
I didn't get to dance with her.
Oh, no.
Nope.
Yeah, that's a really nice scene, too.
I think it's just, it seems, I don't know if it's random, and, the game just can't, possibly process everything, but it's, I don't know.
I feel like you have to go to the camp a bunch to unlock everything, and I feel like it becomes a little bit of a chore where it's how many is it Mary Beth or is it Tilly? Who's the one you're sitting down with and talking to?
It's Mary Beth.
Yeah, I feel like there was a couple things where I'm like, oh, I kept doing it, and it's like, oh, you ran over some animals. I ran over some rabbits on accident. It's I just kill animals randomly, and I'm like, I didn't do that.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
So I'm like, and I just stopped eventually interacting with the camp system because I'm like, this is just giving me, my inputs are giving me nothing back, and that's a little frustrating.
Yeah, and I got frustrated in Chapter 4 because I had, saved my game, and I had a couple of missions at camp, somebody wanted to do a heist or something, and then I loaded back in, I did a mission, and then those were gone. Those are done. I never got to do those.
Yeah, there's weird checkpointing.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't even know.
That's interesting.
They just showed up.
You can definitely miss optional missions, and I think that's the way they handle that is bizarre because it's oh, if you do too many story missions, you will miss optional things.
Yeah. So I may actually have to roll back my save to that point so that I can actually do those missions and then just progress again. I don't want to have to play that fucking party scene over again. Although I will say, and this was not funny, haha, it was kind of funny, sad, but it was a little funny, haha, that the mayor of Saint-Denis makes you go beat up an art historian to prove that some paintings
are real.
That.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I feel really bad, but at the same time, I was kind of like, this is a fucking Rockstar game, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go beat up an art professor.
Did you guys finish that, going back to Strangers, there's another Stranger mission with the art guy, right?
Uh-huh.
That was an interesting, wrap to his arc where he dresses not really cross-dresses,
Did you get a letter? I got a letter from him later.
He
sent me a letter and he was like, Mon ami, everything is great here. Sell that painting for some money. Goodbye.
Did you guys find the sculpture in the rock?
No.
The face?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you read the letter from the body hanging down?
No.
So if you shoot the body down and loot the body,
I didn't even shoot the body. I didn't even think to do that.
He'll have a letter saying oh, I dedicated my life to making this sculpture to my love, and then the fucking painter came and stole my love from me, and now nothing makes me anything.
Oh no!
Yeah. So I'm
funny.
I just assumed it was the same painter because he was so horn dog, but I was just this
kind of makes
fun.
sense.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that whole thing was racist against the French, but it was still,
Yeah.
It was interesting. Anyway.
Yeah. Highs and lows all around. All right, y'all.
We talked about everything with Red Dead. We've done it.
I don't know if we talked about. I was still thinking to myself well, then
I'm
there
pretty
was
sure
that
this
thing,
is a lot
and
more
then there was that
talk
other
about,
thing that we
but
talked about, and then there was the ghost.
I guess the one thing I keep thinking about, and this is based off of the Giant Bomb end of year cast, where they were talking about Red Dead 1 and the connections to Red Dead 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And I think Brad Shoemaker points out that when you kill Dutch, he's like, I had a plan, John, and he's like, you always had a plan, and then he shoots him in the head, and that's the end of it. And I thought that was you see Dutch's characterization as he kind of loses it, and it's I would think it's a little stereotypical, especially when he's doing chess moves in his head.
Mm-hmm.
But I was wondering what you guys thought about Dutch Dutch's characterization. And, like, if you liked how Dutch works, I feel like he's the villain.
It's fun that we didn't talk about Dutch at all. We talked about
everything else but Dutch.
Yeah, because I feel like in the first game, it's like there is a whole untold history, and I kind of like that you do not know what is happening. Yeah. But I feel like they maybe do it justice, but I was wondering how you guys felt about Dutch, and if you thought him as a villain that you would like. Because I definitely did.
So, yeah, I would say yes. He starts off really strong. He's like your friend. There's a lot of camaraderie with him.
Yeah.
He seems to know what he's doing. Everything's, like, for the most part, goes according to plan to whatever he's doing. And, like, you know, he's, for the better of the good, for the camp, he's trying to get all this money and, like, get everyone to safety to Tahiti or wherever. And it wasn't until I don't remember if it was either Saint Denis or when you finally end up on the island and he strangles that woman.
I feel like the Saint Denis, like, bank robbery, like, after Hosea dies, I feel like that's the decline of Dutch, and then it just gets progressively
I think that's
worse.
when it was like, okay, this is where he kind of loses his marbles a little bit here. And he's no longer, like, as competent. Mm-hmm. I'm not entirely sure. But, like, you know, that was, like, where I was like, okay, this is where everything starts to turn around.
Hosea is the check on his, like, excesses, which I really liked Hosea, and I feel like you can kind of see that coming, because, like, Dutch has to be a villain.
Right.
But
right.
I really feel like the part where he's like, oh, this kind of, like, con man who has, like, that verbosity and also, like, that, gravitas, where it's like, I'm here to help people, and he has that, like, kind of quavering voice almost. Like, that was the part where I was like, man, this is so good.
But then, does he really end up being the villain in the end, though? Because in the epilogue, he ends up... I mean, should I...
No, I mean, I think we know that he ends up killing...
Micaiah.
Micah.
Micah. I keep saying Micaiah. Micah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, like, I mean...
But he totally... Like, I know depending on your ending, it's different, but, like, for him, I was like, you know... Arthur gave everything to Dutch, and at the end, in my game, he, like, steps on Arthur's hand, is still kind of like, oh, you betrayed me or whatever, and then this kind of leaves, and, like, I don't know how to deal with this. I'm gonna go. Like, that was
in any ending, he still does the same thing. Yeah. So I'm assuming you went to go help John, right?
Yes.
Right. So when you go help John, that's how it kind of plays out. If you go back to get the money, you and Micaiah wrestle, and then he stabs you with a knife, and then Dutch comes over and is like, what's going on? And Arthur says, you know, Micah is the rat. And Micah, like, doesn't necessarily say he's not, but, like, he doesn't deny it, and it's weird. And then, so Dutch is like, I don't even know what to do with this, and he, like, walks away, too.
Well, I mean, you think about Arthur's characterization where he's like, oh, loyalty is everything to me. Like, I think he says that to John on the train where you're blowing, I don't know if you see it, where he blows up, they blow up the train track, and then he's like, loyalty was everything to me, but, like, that isn't it anymore. And I feel like Dutch just totally betrays that and lets him just, like, cuts him loose, which I think is, like, he's a villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, the one thing that they did with Dutch that I think was a really smart idea was, you know, he's super charismatic. He's very idealistic, but he's idealistic in a way that people believe it, right? And so there's another sequence at the camp with Bill again, where he talks about how Dutch saved him. And he's like, I will follow him anywhere because he saw me as someone who was worth something. And he was like, you have no idea. Like, I had nothing. I had ruined everything behind me. Like, I was going to be dead. Like, drunk in a ditch somewhere, and he was like, and Dutch saw that and gave me something to live for. And so, you know, it's obvious to see, I think, what drew people to Dutch, and I think the thing that they did that was a good choice is that it wasn't that Dutch, I think, was like, he was insane, it was that he was just desperate. Mm-hmm. And it was like, the sinking part of his desperation is these plans were falling apart, and it was getting, like, the kind of hands of, like, the Pinkertons are sort of squeezing on his throat. It was the desperation that really turned him into a villain, I think, more than just, like, well, because the way they portrayed him in Red Dead 1 was like, well, the West is dead, but Dutch can't let it go, and he's bad guy at the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which was sort of like,
I do kind of wonder, because I kept feeling like, oh, Dutch just keeps making, like, decisions that make no sense.
Yeah.
Like, they keep digging themselves into a bigger hole, and, like, logically...
It was like panic.
Yeah, I guess wondering if you guys, like, bought that, because I feel like I had moments where I was like, why are we doing this? And Arthur, like, comments on that, and is like, why are we doing this? And, like, towards the end of the game, I was like, Dutch is, like, has no clue anymore, and he's just kind of, like, lashing out. But in those first couple chapters, I was wondering, like, what you guys thought, if those decisions made sense. Like, or if you, like, bought Dutch's, like, MO in any way.
At all. Nope, not at all.
Like, do you think the characterization made sense, though? Like.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I'm sorry. I thought... I did not, buy into him wanting to do certain things. I was like, no, you're fucking bullshitting. You're just going with the wind at this point. Like, there's no plan.
And you see the desperation really early because of the amount of time he spends, like, preaching to the camp about his ideas and, like, why they all have to rally around behind him. Like, that's a really clear sign of, like... Yeah, like, if you have to try to convince people to stay with you, like...
Well, and he's just using, like, general platitudes about, like, we will make it! We will be, like...
Yeah.
Yeah, like...
And that's, like, the introduction. Like, the first line is, like, we're in this together, stay with me. Like,
when he made that speech... Well, are you at the point where you're in the cave?
No, not yet. I know you take over the Murphy Brood's cave.
Okay,
I know. And that's...
Well, because he makes a speech there as well, but, like... When he was making that speech, no one was really listening to him. Like, there were maybe two people sitting near where he was.
Yeah, but everybody had kind of...
But everyone's... It was, like, right after... What was her name? Molly. Like, right after she had died, basically. Yeah. And it was just, like... He was just preaching, and you as Arthur could go over and, like, listen to him. But everyone else was busy about the camp doing whatever.
That was a really good moment, because I was listening to it, and I got halfway through, and I just walked away.
So did I. I was like, dude, you're just, like, talking bullshit. Just stop. Shut up.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think it's just funny how, like, we get Dutch as a one-dimensional character in Red Dead 1.
Yeah.
And then here... Like, and I feel like you like Dutch in the
yeah.
beginning. Like, you think he's, like, you know that he's a villain, but you're like, oh, I could see how some people may follow him. Like, he has passion, which I think is cool.
I just was irked that he couldn't fucking see through Micah's bullshit.
Which, like, I think the poor characterization of Micah is a flaw.
He was a cardboard cutout that disappeared when he needed to be there.
Yeah, and
which is unfortunate, because they could have really made him, like...
They could have had, like a few scenes of him whispering in his ear.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if Hosea was the snake, you know? Like, that would be...
it was Hosea all along!
Yeah.
I mean, it could have just been as simple as, like, him, Micah, and Dutch, like, just walking through camp and just being like, well, I don't know if that would work. I don't,
And Micah was just, like, not present for a lot of it. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, because he was supposed to be, like, he was either, like, usually drunk off his ass doing whatever, you know? Because he was just that was his character, right?
And he was always mean. Like, he never, I don't think he has a redeeming quality to him.
No, he's literally, he's just the Trevor of this world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I feel like is just now a trope in any Rockstar game, is there's going to be a Trevor. So, or, like, Trevor-esque, someone who's just batshit crazy. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, should we call it on the old Red Dead 2?
Yeah.
Howdy, pokey, funny time?
I know we're running low on
time.
Right
off in the sunset.
I don't really want to get into this, but I do want to say that the native representation of this game is, like, I'm glad that it's in there. At the same time, I feel like...
But it's also, like...
stereotypical as fuck. Like,
I thought they were trying to tie it into Red Dead 1, because remember, Dutch at the end has, like, allied himself with some rogue native tribe.
Yes.
I assume that was...
Yeah.
You know what? Another moment that I really enjoyed was when Arthur was talking to Rainsfall as they were going up the mountain to go kind of like meditate, and then they find out that the meditation tent has been destroyed.
Yeah.
I like that as well.
Oh, yeah.
As far as like a takeaway moment.
Right. Deal. I think that was good. And that's where we learn about Arthur's family.
Yeah, his past. So
yeah.
It was really good. I really loved Rainsfall as like just a character too. He was very, very good.
Yeah.
I just wish those characters, and like, I understand in terms of plotting, there was a purpose to them being used. I just wish those characters had more room to like do other things, but I know that's limited.
Yeah. I wish by like helping them, because I think it's optional to help them, I wish that by helping them you could somehow save them in a way, or like make their whatever, change the course of what happens in the game, and just like kind of preserve them or something. But no, they pretty much, like history, get destroyed.
Yeah.
So, for the most part, anyway.
This game was definitely better when it came to any kind of, like, racial representation, because Red Dead 1 was very much like, here is a trope, dead. Like, that's what they did. They did that to a Native American man. They did it to a Hispanic woman. The Irish guy was just, my name is Irish and I drink. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So they did a good job about not killing off all their people of color and at least giving them some representation within the plot. But I think it is still bad that it's like, we have to kind of eat our little, like, representation crumbs and be like, yummy, well, they're here, thank God, but...
The one black guy and native guy is like, he's like the woke dude who's gonna tell you about how, like, the government, like, fucked him over. Or, like, the one, like,
That would be a good movie.
Just put Dan Reichert in. Take the face scan and put him in there.
He was in L.A. Noire?
Yeah, L.A. Noire. Yeah.
He was?
He was.
I did not know that.
He's just like a paper guy.
Right.
So there's like just an instance where there's like a reporter that yells at you for 2 seconds and it's Dan Reichert.
Got it.
Yeah, so next game with Dan Reichert. We're all set.
Red Dead 3.
Oh my god. Can you imagine? What would that even be? So are they going to like go after Red Dead Redemption, the first one, and now it's going to be Jack's story?
Jack.
Man, just give me like a different like cowboy gameplay.
I would.
Yeah,
at this point, just put it to bed. Do something different.
I feel good about what they did, though. Like, I was apprehensive going in thinking, like, I don't know if I want this story told, but I feel better knowing that it has been told.
Yeah. I feel like Arthur
made it worth
Arthur as the Arbiter is worth it.
Yeah.
Entirely.
Yeah.
And that there is a podcast. This has been the Greetings From Podcast. You can find us wherever podcasts are hosted, sold for free, such as Apple Podcasts, Simplecast, Spotify, and all the other ones that I don't remember. If you have questions, send them to greetingsfromcast@gmail.com. You can find us online at greetingsfrom.zone, or you can follow us on Twitter at greetingsfrompc. My name is Rebecca Faye, and you can find me at Rebecca Faye. Olivia, where can they find you?
I'm at LiveJQ. Tyler, where can they find you?
At World Jumpin'.
Adios, amigos.
Adios, partner.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Greetings From. There are 3 songs in this special episode. The intro song is called Way Out West by Twin Musicom. The break song is called Meanwhile Back at the Saloon, written and performed by Brett Von Donzel. Our outro song is called The Gunfight by Everett Allman, provided by Lion Free Music. You can find the link to these songs in the podcast description. If you're looking for more episodes of Greeting From, please head on over to greetingsfromcast.zone. Follow us on Twitter and Twitch at greetingsfrompc. Thank y'all and keep your saddle oiled and your guns greased. Adios, amigos.